we're getting back on track. You guys know I had a little setback with my coronavirus situation, but now we're getting back on schedule, and I have my brother on with us today, Kala Genesis, and today we're going to be discussing, the Chinese are our friend. They're our best friend. They're our business partners. Meanwhile, in China, Africans are getting put out on the street from the hotels. They're getting kicked out of their houses, put out on the streets, getting called all types of names. So did Africa lose its friend in quotation marks in China? But before we get started, a couple of announcements. Tours. We are rolling to Nigeria in August, people. We are still rolling August 13th to the 19th. We are going to Nigeria for the Oshun Festival. So please come and roll with us. Also, to December, we are still rolling to Sierra Leone, Blacksit, Search for Uhuru collab to Sierra Leone, December 4th through the 12th. Come and roll with us. And then also, too, if you guys are looking for a opportunity to work at home, work from home opportunity, make money at home, because the current climate we're in, I mean, a lot of people aren't going to be going back to their jobs. Let's just be honest. It's not going to happen. So if you want to deal with the work from home business, home based business dealing with gold, hit me up, email me, go to dynastamir.com, send me an email. Again, go to dynastamir.com, send me an email, and we could discuss it further. Work from home, home based opportunity where you're dealing with gold. So hit me up. But Kyle, let's jump right into it. And shout out to Fitzgerald Stevens in the chat room, everybody. Brother Fitzgerald's in the
Fitzgerald, what's up, brother Fitzgerald? Good, thank you. I'm honored.
chat.
I'm very honored he's here. Okay. Like what I want to say about China is this, right? Um, I think the black people, the black race, our race has to upgrade to the modern times, right? We're still living in the 1950s and 60s with this idea of the people of color, third world unity, people of color, and all this stuff like that. That was good in the 1950s. China was considered the leader of the third world, the developing world, right? China is still actually a developing nation. It still has 400 million people still living off the grid, right? It still, despite all its wealth, it still hasn't managed to bring most of its people. It did. It made it remarkable. It lifted 400 million people out of poverty, but still has another 350 million people living in abstract poverty in rural areas, isolated rural areas, right? And what a lot of people don't realize is a lot of these people don't have modern education, right? They don't. It's not like the Hong Kong of the '60s where we were watching martial arts movies, stuff like that, or whether it was Japan, Tokyo, modern Asia was being born. So what you have right now is uh, 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 a part of China that's still pretty much backwards in a way. Backwards in a way. And one of the things they're backwards with, Chinese are very xenophobic towards people who are not just black, but in general, they're xenophobic towards people who are not what they call Han race or Chinese. It's pretty much a homogeneous culture. For the most part, you have the Mandarins, people that speak Cantonese. So therefore, in the 1950s, Mao Zedong reached out to the African continent, right? Mao Zedong, the Chinese built a railway in Tanzania and in Zambia, right? And so therefore, China was always looked to as the leader of the third world, or leader of the people of color, non-white people. And so the Chinese people have a 65-year history of training African students, right, in their universities and bringing them over. This was basically public relations, right? And we're gonna get back to that in a second. Why people do stuff? People don't do stuff because they really love you. Okay, there might
Right.
be some bonds of affections and everything, but they're getting something out of it. At the time, the China and Russia was trying to spread global communism, right? And one of the weapons they used was the fact that the majority of people on this earth were people of color, right? So it made sense that China would befriend African countries and help them develop and everything so they could see things Beijing's way, right? It was actually Moscow, but then there was a rivalry between Moscow and Beijing, okay? And when that rivalry happened during when Khrushchev was president of Russia, the Chinese started moving towards people of color and everything, and the United States actually and Russia was actually moving together. It was a color thing. Former U.S. Ambassador Adlai Stevenson said there's a color thing going on in the UN, right? He said the fact that African countries on the whole, because China has a permanent seat on the UN Security Council, were voting with China like 99% of the time. Even countries that said they were allied to the United States were favoring China. Why? Because China was seen as a fellow person of color. Okay. Now, what was going on during this time period? The Vietnam War. Okay. Most of people of the world, black people, brown people, whatever, opposed the Vietnam War. It said it was a war of American imperialism inside Asia, and the Asians were fighting for their liberation. So they equated their struggle, the war in Vietnam, with their struggle against colonialism in Africa. In 1955, there was an event that happened in Indonesia, Jakarta, Indonesia, called the Bandung Conference. Right. This is very important to understand why.
Yeah, real quick, Kyle, hold on one second, Kyla. Guys, hit that like button when you come to the chat room. Please hit the like button. If you're not super chatting, if you're not contributing, the least you could do is hit the like button. So please hit that like button.
Hit the like button.
I'm gonna have Carla sing the song if you don't.
You don't want me singing.
Yeah. Go ahead, Carla.
Anyway, there was a organization called the big conference Asia of the 20th century. Was called the Bandung Conference. Kwame Nkrumah was there. Adam Clayton Powell was there. Okay, and all the heads of Asian countries were there. Right. The gist of this country, the gist of this conference was about how do we basically, and this is what we're going to talk about. Africa never had their Bandung Conference. This is when we get back to this. So let me say this, and I'm going to explain to you what Africa did.
Let me ask you this, Carla. So the Pan-African Conference, all these conferences Africa was having, like what were they actually discussing?
Well, the thing is, here's a problem, right? When you talk about Pan-Africanism started in the West. West is a Western ideology. It was based on the idea that we're all black people. But when you go to different countries, they're like, oh, no, I'm not African. I'm Biafra. Remember the Biafra War? You know, a lot of people, Nigerians, say, I don't want anything to do with Ghana. We'll talk about this, that, and the other thing, but I'm not going to let somebody vote on what goes on in Nigeria. And Nigerians said this at the independence. It's, look, what goes on in Nigeria is going to be done by Nigerians. We're going to do this, right? There's not going to be any supreme body that we're going to concede to. That's going to preempt us. This was the original OAU wanted to do. They wanted to have a supreme body. That's what Kwame Nkrumah wanted. A supreme body on the continent that could preempt laws, hold leaders accountable, and make decisions beyond what the as far as the peacekeepers, all the stuff like that. The country that was going to be the head of this was Liberia. People don't know that. That was completely written out of history, right? There were several lead-ups to the OAU. The last one in 1979, before the OAU died, right? The conference in Liberia, right? It was 1979, right? Right when the riots happened in Monrovia, right? That conference right there set up several things that was going to transform Africa, and it was basically modeled on the Bandung Conference. There was going to be two things. There was going to be the Lagos Plan of Action, which basically was going to create a grid, a roadway system and grid system, a unified currency, and a unified power system for the whole region. So the other countries could buy into build one unified grid, one highway system, right? Instead of you being able to drive on the left side in one country, you're going to have one side on what side of the road we're going to drive on. And so cars and trucks can move freely throughout West Africa. A railway system, okay? And also all these things in a peacekeeping force, which eventually became ECOMOG, ECOMOG, okay? The Bandung Conference did certain things, right? They said, look, the problem we have in Asia is that we do not control the infrastructure of Southeast Asia. Okay, we're going to take steps. It's going to take us a generation, but we have to do this, right? They said the one thing we have to do is get rid of the Europeans' presence, right? By not relying on them, not relying on them. We got to basically make sure that companies in Asia can have access to the old Thai Asian markets, right? Preferential treatment as far as Asian manufactured goods and stuff like that. Then you have to have logistics, right? Singapore benefited greatly from this because Singapore became the logistics center of Southeast Asia. If you wanted to build something in Malaysia, you want to open up a company or whatever like that, Singapore is a place. If you want to trade in Asia, that's gonna do that. So therefore, companies that in Thailand and everything that may not have the infrastructure could use Singapore as a base, right? The shipping ports, everything. Singapore would benefit because it was a tiny island. It was straddled by two oceans, right? So it was strategically a place where goods in Asia, like you say, you have a whole bunch of fruit in Malaysia that's grown. Well, Singapore right. was a place that all the Asians use to bulk break it, then ship it to around Asia and the rest of the world. So this is why Asian countries grew. You know, Asian real estate began to grow, education, trade, banking, finance, shipping companies, all these things right here were uniform in Asia, right? In other words, people could be from Hong Kong, but it's easily for him to move to Thailand. Why? Because there's a sense of pan-Asianism as far as like infrastructure and business, okay? So therefore, the problem was, how did we get Africa to do that? Well, one of the reasons why is Asia's benefit was because they were rebuilding after a war, okay? Southeast Asia was completely leveled and devastated, right? So when they got loans from the World Bank and everything, they put those things into place. Plus, they had a powerful country to the north, Japan, that was sending a lot of capital to Southeast Asia. Africa never had their version of Japan on the continent. This is a problem. One country in Africa should have been by now fully industrialized. You know,
Nigeria.
Nigeria should have been that country. You know, it had everything to do. But like I said, we had a lot of problems in Nigeria. We're not going to do a show on Nigeria tonight. That's too long. We did enough shows. Maybe we should need to come back and do another show on what went wrong in Nigeria. So therefore, what you had was Asian countries were prospering. You know, Japan opened up relations with communist China, right, in the 1970s, right? Right now, Japan and China may hate each other, right? Let's think about this. They may hate each other, but they do $300 to $400 billion a year worth of business transaction between Japan and China. Same thing with South Korea and Japan. They do hundreds of billions of dollars of business together, but they hate each other, right? The thing is, Africans having to learn to basically, okay, we may not like each other, but there's almost very little trade between African countries, okay? Now, some people said to me, well, the free trade zone is going to open up. Well, how are you going to have a free trade zone when you don't have your manufacturing base, your industrial base yet? You don't have infrastructure. You don't have power. You don't have water generation. You don't have enough infrastructure on an industrial scale to manufacture this. The only people that's going to benefit from this free trade zone right now are China, right? The Lebanese, right? Indians, all these people that are set up in places like Tanzania, Kenya, and South Africa are going to have access to a whole market. I do believe at the end of the day, Nigeria is going to pull out of it. I don't think Nigeria even agreed to it yet, you know? But Nigeria is being pressured to go along with it, right? Nigeria stands to lose by the open border access to its markets, okay? Because a lot of these products that originate in these countries don't originate in Africa. They originate in China, sold under an African name, okay? So that's not helping the African industrial base, right? Africa right now has a net outflow of $100 billion a year, despite all the so-called infrastructure China's doing and everything like that. Because there's no transatlantic or trans-Pacific shipping firms, you know, not shipping companies, shipping firms that go from point A to point B, that take goods from one area to the other area and add legs on, A, B, C, D, E. That's what a shipping line does. It has different legs and everything. Each way, they're taking one group from another. So therefore, since everything that comes in and out of the continent is controlled by foreign firms, they control basically the continent. Not to mention the fishing grounds, right? There's not a policy in place to stop robber baron fishing companies, industrial fishing companies, from dumping and robbing the continent of its fishing grounds. Okay.
Right.
Now the thing is, well, people will say, now this goes back to the thing. Well, why people are so shocked about what China talk about? The Chinese know this. This is not the Chinese of Mao Zedong, who I think was really sincere and wanted to help Africa and stuff like that. Those Chinese back then. The Chinese people, and just like I said, just like anybody else, folks, people will be third world with you. They'll be poor with you for a little while, right?
Right.
It's just like anybody, once they get money, like, let me give you an example. I told this one Asian guy, right? I said, look, I've been watching Chinese Kung Fu movies since I was a kid. I love them, right? But they don't want to look at that. Why? Because those sort of themes have to do with poverty and struggle and everything. They will talk about, oh, we're so glad Crazy Rich Asians got recognition.
Right.
I was like, Crazy Rich Asians, in other words, Asia is moving away from poverty, being third world, right? And so they're basically trying to be partnerships with white people, and next to white people. This is why this anti-Asian stuff is coming as a shock to them. They're like, well, why is it? I said to one guy, I said, look, people are dying. You're worrying about Chinese people being insulted. The number of Asian people are getting insulted right now because of coronavirus. Oh, as well as they should be. It came from China, didn't it? So people are dying. People are scared. So if they lash out, I'm not trying to justify abusing Chinese or anything like that. But the think that they're going to come to a country like America, right? After all we've been through in America, right? Even the racist history towards Chinese. When in 1884 they had the Chinese Exclusion Act, where they said, "Get the hell out of here. We don't want you here." Matter of fact, in Oakland, I did my research. I found that there was a Statue of Liberty in Oakland, in the Bay over there, that they had Chinese that waited almost 3 years to get inside the United States. Whereas Ellis Island, at the same time, they were processed in a few days. And so a lot of Chinese end up freaking have to go back to China because America wouldn't let them in. So all this history is being lost, right? And so people, Black America changed the civil rights movement, changed America through the civil rights movement. All these people benefited from the civil rights movement without having shed any blood or anything like that. So therefore, they're like, oh, what's this America? Like, look, we're still, Black people in America, still suffering for systemic racism, systematic racism in America. So they expect oh, well, I don't believe this is happening. I'm like, you don't believe this is happening, right? You don't believe this is happening. You don't see the fact that a lot of people are apprehensive about what the China's new role in the world is, Chinese copyright infringements and everything. This is a lot, Chinese unfair trade practices, they're devaluing the currency, all the stuff like that. And then we had the coronavirus. That was just the basically straw that broke the camel's back, So now, therefore, the Chinese, instead of dealing with white people, right, who are the main ones pushing this anti-Chinese thing, who's hurting them the most, because when it's all said and done, China's going to pay dearly.
Go into that as far as when you say pay dearly, like
well, I know that there's a lot of countries already now basically looking to sue China or whatever like that as a thing. That's why they're trying to get this out of China. The media is trying to help the Chinese get this out of China and make this a black disease in America.
That's a show. That's another show.
Oh, we forgot all about the Chinese. Now everything, what do you see? You think they talk about Black people because they love us so much or they care about our healthcare? No, they want to keep saying Black coronavirus, Black coronavirus. Then next, what happens? It's going to be the coronavirus shuffle. We call it coronavirus shuffle. Everybody doing the coronavirus shuffle. Yeah, coronavirus. No, Negro, I don't want to own this shit. Let's do what we have to do. Clean hands, wash your hands and everything like that.
Right.
You go to the bathroom, do stuff like that. Do it. Wear a mask. Stay inside if you don't have to go out. Do those precautions. If you don't have coronavirus right now. And by the way, I have to say something right now. Take a moment of silence. I just lost my uncle Albert, this afternoon to guess what? Coronavirus. My Uncle Albert was in a nursing home in New York City, and he just died this afternoon, just a few hours ago, for coronavirus, complications with coronavirus. And then I found out too that
my condolences.
Yeah, so thank you. So therefore I found out 2 other people that was close to the family, right, died. One guy worked as a truck driver, ShopRite. They found him dead in his truck. Right? Another girl who was living on my Uncle Albert's daughter-in-law's block, right? there was a disturbance in her house. Her mother kicked her out, whatever. Like she said, look, I'm sick, whatever, like that. Her mother said, no, she hit me, kicked her out. The police came, took her away, right? Guess what? They found her at a bus stop with her bags, dead. Coronavirus.
Wow.
This thing is real. Now it's hitting home. Now somebody I know and I loved is dead. Now it's personal to me. You know, and I mean, not taking away for anybody else who died or whatever like that. But when I heard that to this afternoon, just a few hours ago, I said, wow, you know, wow, this is real. This is not a game. This is not some stuff like that. And I'm not going to let you Negroes come up here and niggerize and do the coronavirus shuffle with me. No, it's not going to work like that. This virus is real. Now we're going to get back to who's responsible for it when it's all said and done. The main thing is saving lives, right? Doing what you can do. We as Black people got to stop being so damn hard-headed. I saw a video the other day, you know, with this guy in Philly, right? He was on a bus without no mask, and the police dragged him off. You know, he said, oh, yo, look, your rights end where my rights begin. You know, if you're going to be in a public and everything, if you're going to be in a close space and everything, you should be required to wear a mask, right? If you're going to get on a public train, a public bus, or you don't get on, you don't have a right to be on the train, you know? In anything, sometimes in a pandemic, your liberties are restricted. Do people even know that at one time a doctor in a community was probably one of the most powerful people because he could quarantine somebody. The police, the sheriff, judge couldn't do anything about it. People don't know that history, you know, but over the years, you know, we stopped doing that. Oh, well, you know, it's a fringe of all these stupid ideas about civil liberties. We used to be a doctor used to be able to diagnose somebody and say this person is mentally unstable. We're going to institutionalize. They don't do that anymore. We take the mental institute, the people who are mentally ill. You know, we give them a rap record. You know, we give them a rap deal. You know, we put them on stage. You know, we give them a mic and we give them stuff like that. So we don't treat people with mental illness. You know, and so therefore we don't basically take anything seriously. I want to commend Dynast for having the two doctors on. You know, Dr. Chi and what's your other brother name?
The thing is, I'm just tired of people who are not educated, who don't have the background. You know, they read a couple books, they look at a couple articles, you know, they look at a couple videos on YouTube. Now all of a sudden they're experts. My thing is,
Lord, that is so true. You know, true. Because of Facebook, because of Facebook, because of Google, because of Wiki, we got people out here don't know what the hell they talk about. Think they're educated, you know? The only thing Facebook and Google and all these YouTube does is give you the ability to discern, right? But you have to let the experts, right? No, they say, well, Colin, well, who gives them the right? Well, the bottom line is this, right? We as Black people, we don't have institutions, right? Let me name off a couple of institutions. You know, that's shaping your power. While you go out there voting, right? When you go out there so-called voting and everything, you vote at people, right? Do you understand?
Hold on, Colin. Shout out to Mystic. Hold on, Mystic 9 for the super chat. Also, guys, make sure you like when you come into this video. Hit the like button, please. Hit the like button. And guys, and real quick, and share and subscribe. My birthday's in 4 days. Oh, I forgot. I almost forgot. I will be 38 years old in 4 days. Dang. It's gone by fast. 4 days.
When I first got on, your first birthday, you turned 36. I remember that, you know, 2 years ago.
Wow.
When I first got on, I remember you just turned 36. You was like, yeah, I'm 36. I said, you're a young guy, man, with a channel like this, man. This guy young guy smart, you know? Yeah. But anyway, like I was saying, we as Black people, since we don't have institutions, right? We're not an institutionalized people, right? We're people led by demagogues, rabble rousers, and charlatans and everything. We like people, you know, that do the shuffle and sambo and everything. If they can make us feel good at the time period and everything like that, you know, and we always want to discredit, right? Modern medicine and modern science. Here's another thing about China, right? China had a cultural revolution, right? Which basically is like this. There was a Chinese writer, folks. Look him up. His name is Lu Zong, right? Look him up, right? He was a essayist, right? That basically helped the Chinese, right? And the communists used him, a lot of his writings and everything, but they feared him, right? He was very powerful, right? He said, look, we had a revolution in 1912. They overthrew the Manchurian government, right? But then it was like, now what, right? China was so sick, right? So sick. They understood. They said, well, Chinese still didn't want to get. They understood the reason why they're being exploited, and everything is because there's a modern world out there that they know nothing about. There's still Chinese that want to still do martial art. They want to do acupuncture. Well, all that stuff is good, right? But then they said, look, we have to learn the things of modern medicine, modern science, modern technology, and everything, and make it uniquely Chinese, right? The problem with black people is this: we claim to be the origins of civilization.
Right.
We claim to be
Built the
the
pyramid.
architects of science and
Built the pyramid.
technology.
Built the pyramid.
You know, we built the pyramid. We did all the science. Oh, look what we did. But yet, when it comes down to somebody who's actually studied medicine, studied science and everything, oh, that's all.
Oh,
He just look at what he just read what he's told.
that's the European system. That's the European.
That's a European system. I thought the science is not European. Science is science, right? Science is absolute. Science is science. There's a law of relativity, the law of supply and demand, right? Supply and demand is a law, scientific law. It can't be disproven. Okay, that's scientific law. Once there's something is scientific law and everything, it can't be disproven. The law of gravity. Okay, what does that mean? It's law. That means it's not up for theory. You have theories and you have law. Okay, we as black people, we don't believe in the basics like logic, reason, as science. So therefore, we always basically question anything that comes out of a book. There's an old saying, right? If you want to hide something from a black man, Diane, where do you put it?
In a book.
In a book. I told the story many times. I had some brothers stayed over my house one time. I had some money. I thought, oh, I don't trust these brothers, right? I put that money in the book. Guess what? That money was still there. Because I know them Negroes won't want to pick up that book, You know what I'm saying? Put that money in there, that money was still there. They ain't like a book.
Do it again, Tyler. Do it again.
Book, read it. Woo. But like I said, I love my people, right? I love my people. But like I said, I have a PhD in Negroology. The Negro is something else. We're the eighth wonder, the ninth wonder of the world. So therefore, now we go to get back to China, right? The Chinese understood they were proud people. It wasn't easy for the Chinese to modernize, right? They were proud people, right? Their country is the Middle Kingdom. This is the center of civilization. All the countries in Asia, Japan, Taiwan, Korea, all of them borrowed from the Chinese for hundreds of years, right? Every time you go around Asia, the writing system, everything like that, all that came from China. It was Greece and Rome and Egypt and all that in Asia, okay? So it was very hard for them to modernize. Your Japanese understood. They said, even though we borrowed a lot from China, right? Now we are confronted with another group of people, the Westerners, who have superior guns, superior weapons, superior everything, superior business techniques, superior industrial capacity. We have to learn from the West. We have to learn from the West. Take what we want from the West, right? Take what's good and discard what's and make it uniquely your own. In other words, basically, if you're gonna build a railway system, make it for it benefits Japan, right? Master these things so it becomes uniquely your own, so you could duplicate and build for yourself. So for the edifices of the what's what I'm looking for the can't think of the word, but anyway, for the benefit of for your posterity, okay. We as black people, what we want to do is, instead of taking what the West has, we have people that spent generations in Europe, right? You're in Germany, you're around all this industry and technology. Why are you spending a lifetime in Germany? Why are you becoming a German citizen? Why is your kids, born in Germany, you born in Nigeria? Why aren't you coming back to Nigeria with what you learned and building, building what you have in Africa and everything? Why are there so many people in the UK? Why are so many Africans going to China? Don't stay there forever. Learn what you want to learn. Get your trade, make your business deals, whatever you got to do, and learn what they learn and everything, and bring it back to your home continent. I don't see that happening. I don't see that happening. Why is it they'll take? You got all these students in China. How come you guys can't come back and build the railways? Why does the Chinese have to build the railways for you? You know, and what happens is this, right? When the Chinese built that railway in Kenya a couple of years ago, what they do? They made themselves the conductor,
Right, right. They hired each.
and put the
They,
Kenyans in the
yeah,
back in your own country,
they hired
you
each
know.
other.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and so they hired each other, and you're like, oh, this ain't fair. Well, first of all, how did they get to the agreement in the first place? Africans, we don't have an ability to hold leaders accountable. Why? Because the leaders prefer. He's from my tribe. I can't go against him. Everything. I can't go against him because all that stuff has to go. We're talking about a world. He said, well, why? We're gonna change. Look, either we're gonna change, or basically what we have to do is this: just go ahead and give up. Let the Chinese, let the Europeans come in and just take it over. But guess what? They're gonna take over. They're gonna take over your women. They're gonna take over your resources and everything. And you're just gonna be, what Africa's gonna end up looking like? Something like Jamaica. You know, when
I,
every,
I've never been to Jamaica, but I keep hearing that the Chinese pretty much run Jamaica.
of course, the Chinese and the Jews, Chinese, Lebanese, and Indians and everything. They own all the infrastructure in the business. The modern business. Like Bomani was telling me last Saturday. He was telling me that yeah, the Jamaicans, all of the Jamaicans who live in places like Kingston and poverty and everything, they're trying to get to the UK or the United States to make money and everything like that, or Florida, and everything. And that's what it is. So we don't have any.
Hey, Colin, somebody just in the channel just made a great point. Shout out to Jamal Omar. The Chinese are only one generation out of their peasant class, and look what they're doing.
Right, exactly. You know why? Because we as black people, we see them as superior. Chinese, Chinese, Chinese people are innovators. They're copiers, right? They haven't invented one thing. African Americans have produced more inventions than the Chinese have. You know, in the last 150 years. Chinese basically copy. This is not taking anything away from the Chinese, what they do and stuff like that. They're good at what they do, duplicating stuff and mass scaling it, right? And they know how to give out loans and everything like that, beguile people and everything. But the question tonight is, what has happened? What happened is Africa has never built respect. There's a difference between. Hold. Let me answer this. No, never mind. There's a difference between being liked and being respected, right?
Right.
Respected. Martin Luther King said, no, I'm not dissing Martin Luther King. The anniversary of his death just happened a week ago, and everything. Put this in my drawer. Okay. I forget that phone call. Anyway, Martin Luther King once said, I just want to love somebody, See,
Right.
the burden of being loving is always on the people with no power. You ever notice that?
Say that again.
The burden of being loving is always on the people with no power. You
Right.
want the people with power
To
to
love
put
you.
their hands up.
All right,
You know?
right.
I love my brother Wode Meyer, right? But I strongly disagree with him where he was like, why can't people just love each other? Why we have all these issues and everything like that? Well, people just hate you because you're look, Wode, that's the way it is. I accept the fact that people don't like me because I'm black, Then you move on. You start building with your own people. There's never going to be this kumbaya. And the only people that believe in that is the black people. Why? Because we're on the bottom of the world, right? As soon as people get up, right? As soon as they start feeling, so the Indians, they're starting to feel themselves.
Right.
They're feeling themselves. But they feel themselves right now. Why? Because they're gaining power. They're producing billionaires. They're loaning money to other countries. They feel like the imperialist countries. Of course, you're only human. You're only human. If you see a group of people that you feel superior to and everything, and when you go around them, you could treat them every day, however you want and everything, and they don't have their act together. They're relying on you. They're begging you for everything and everything. They're gonna naturally think they're superior. That's just human nature. That's just human nature. That's never gonna change. That's been like that since the dawn of time immemorial. People who basically are stronger, are more powerful, or more success, or more accomplished and everything, are going to look down on things. While the worst people are the people, not the people that look down on it, the people that feel that you need their help, like the French doctors who will talk about, well, Africa is a place. They just roll right off their mouth. This is a
Yeah.
place we could
I
test
mean,
this new
normal.
virus.
Yeah.
They just
It's
roll.
normal.
They don't even think about it.
Yeah.
It's just normal.
Colin, real quick. So, how do you feel about African right now in China? Africans, Nigerians being dumped on the streets from the hotels in their houses, and then on the flip side of it, in Nigeria, they're actually bringing in Chinese doctors to
Yeah,
help.
like I said, when you look at the things like this, right? It goes to show you what we all saying all the time, right? Africa has to get serious about this race thing. You know, it's when you do that, right? What does that say to the average young Nigerian, right? They're looking on the social media how Africans are being put out in the street, humiliated. Even people that were married to Chinese are being taken out of their homes and put on the street. That's injustice, right? At the same time, your government is courting the same Chinese to bring over there to help your doctors. When you have so many Nigerian doctors, right?
Right.
Nigeria should take $1 billion. They got the money, right? Take $1 billion that you loot every year. Just look, all the money Nigeria you guys loot every year from the treasury and everything. Just save a little bit of that back, right? Take $1 billion. Say, look, we're gonna bring every last single Nigerian doctor in the U.S., in the U.K., and everything back home. We're going to pay them whatever they want. Why? Because those doctors are going to train other doctors. It's going to be a multiplier effect, right? And then we're going to have a pool of doctors. Forget globalism. You know, Africans are the last group of people that still believe in globalism. Getting that green card, that visa, and everything is everything. You know, oh, I'm a citizen. I say, you see me battling these idiots on Facebook all the time. Oh, it's a college. It's a global community now. Now, okay, where's your global community now in China? You know, you guys want to live overseas for 10 generations. Professor Davis said there are more Nigerian doctors. Yeah, in all of Nigeria. I mean, is that so? I mean, that's that. I mean, I granted the money's here and everything like that.
Well, one second, Carla. Guys, hit that like button. Okay. Again, stop being selfish with the likes. If you're not super chatting, cash apping, hit that like button. Again, hit the like button. If I have to say it again, I'm gonna have Carla sing the song. Okay.
like,
All
like,
right, go
like,
ahead.
like.
Oh, there was a song right there. There was a song. All right, go ahead, Carla.
But anyway, check this out. The thing is, you have more Nigerian doctors. Like there's a on my social networks like the BAO. I have a series called. If you look it up, folks, it's called the Pacific Century. Right? It's like a 7-part series, I believe, made in 90. I remember this back in '92 on PBS. It's about the making of Asia. It's about Asia, right? It talks about the Bandung Conference, the Russo-Japanese War, everything. The modern Japan, the Japanese miracle, everything. The point of that thing is this. I watched this one thing where this is in the early '90s. They had these Filipino nurses, right?
Right.
Who got the nursing certificate in the Philippines, right? And they're in California, right? And they're
Oh,
saying,
Carla, real quick. The Filipinos, as far as the dialysis centers, they run it.
yeah, so now they're doing good. They got into the business, but back then they were like, well, look, we don't have any nurses in the Philippines, and that's what showed you that the globalism is this. This is how globalism is. They'll let you a country like Africa, okay, we'll let you educate your kids and everything, right? But we're gonna bring those kids over here, your best and brightest. It's a brain drain. We call it brain drain. We're gonna have to bring a brain drain out of your countries and everything like that, and bring your best and bright. Why? Because hey, it's not about Nigeria. It's not about Ghana. It's about the world. We're the
Right.
global community. You cannot be a globalist and call yourself a Pan Africanist and nationalist too. You know, you can't talk Pan Africanism and act globalism. Because if you're a globalist, right, when you're in need on the continent, you are a sellout and a traitor, right? The one thing the Asians got, right, except for the Philippines, but one thing the Asians got was they valued their brain power. The Chinese, you think the Chinese got where it by China? You know what the Chinese did? They went all around the world, right? Recruited people that were 7 generations deep in America, right? You're still Chinese. We need your expertise. You're a doctor. We need your expertise. They went all around the world, Chinatowns all around the world, and started recruiting people, right, to the global Chinese cause. The Germans did the same thing pre-World War II. They reached out to the German American community in America, right? There's no mechanism because Black people don't value human capital. Human capital. We're still a place where labor is exported. Okay, we export labor around the world, right? We give our brain power, our best and brightest to France. You know, because why? Because we're all black Frenchmen. You know, we're all Frenchmen. We're all British. You know, everybody fawning over the Queen of England. Like I said, one thing about being African American, we have no affection for these the royal family. I had an argument with one.
I don't know if Colin,
Oh, I know that
when
Meghan
it had the
Markle. That's a different thing.
Markle,
Yeah,
whatever.
that's a different
Yeah,
thing.
I
But
mean,
before that, I didn't see anybody. Well, I had to argue with one of my boys years ago when Princess Diana died, right? And he's like, "Yo, man, the Queen, the Princess." I said, "Princess who?" Yo, because he's from Bermuda, right? And he's like, "Yo, she's a queen that she did so. I mean, that's the queen's daughter, man. Yo, oh man." I'm like, "Yo, are you serious?" You know, Princess Diana, yeah, man. But then it dawned on me, right? Even though he's my boy and everything, when you grow up in these Anglophone countries like Jamaica and everything like that, you have an attachment to the crown. You know, you have attachment to the crown, and that's exists in Africa. Ghana still is part of the Commonwealth Games. You know, I think Nigeria is part of the Commonwealth Games too. You know, that's all part of this global thing. You know, and when people look at this around the world, right, they're like, yo, look, these people are more aligned to the British. You know, now they're aligned to China. When they're dependent on China, China's like the new empire in Africa and everything. There's no respect. You know, the Chinese are just showing you what they really think about you. You know,
right.
they don't care about your humanity. They don't care about your dignity and everything like that. They only want what China, what can get out of you. And a lot of Africans say that. Well, Chinese only want one thing. They want this and everything. So, but the problem is that is you got a lot
Yeah,
of
but I mean, but Colin, what were they expecting?
well, like I said, if Africans could love each other, black people like they do other races, we conquer the world. You
Right.
know, we always look at other races as superior, and so therefore, we think that the world. How is it that you're going to talk about the Chinese love you when you don't even like the tribe in your same country? You
Right.
know, you don't like the Chinese. You'll forgive the Chinese and the white man in a minute. But yeah, you guys go on about African Americans said this. They called me a booty scrapper when I was in America. You
Yeah.
know,
Ready,
I
ready
never
to go.
heard that term. I never heard that term. I never
You
heard
know,
nobody.
I didn't. I heard it the first time on Boys in the Hood, but after that,
That's the only time I heard that. But
yeah.
it was an African American saying to another African American, "You African booty scrapper." I never heard anybody. You know, every time when something came on about Africa, everybody, whoa, Africa, the motherland. I remember that movie Shaka Zulu came out.
Mhm.
Everybody's like, "Yo, Shaka," you know what I'm saying? We always had an affection for the motherland, the continent, and stuff like that. You know, when Nelson Mandela came, I don't know if you remember that, Diane. You was probably young, right? When he came to America in 1990, right? The
Mhm.
whole country shut down.
Oh
You
wow.
know, everybody was lined up down in New York City to see Mandela. You know, he was driving those the motorcade, glass motorcade, bulletproof motorcade.
Mhm.
The whole country shut down. He went there. He went there. He went to Yankee Stadium. He went to everywhere. Black people were just, oh my God, Mandela. Oh my God, I'm an African. I'm African. I'm African. Everything. Everybody went crazy, but people seem to forget about that. You know, and Mandela was up there. He was on the panel with Ted Koppel, and Ted Koppel tried to throw some stuff at him. Well, we said all the black people always like, no, 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 don't talk to Brother Mandela like that, you know. So we always had this affection, that we've never been reciprocated, you know. We don't go judging people by the worst. We know Nigeria is a good country and they got honorable, good people in the country. But unfortunately, the people that's in power, right, because of politics and everything, those are the ones that's ruling. The people that make these bad decisions on Africa's behalf, I can't judge Nigeria by that. Those are bad people that made bad decisions and everything, short-sighted decisions, you know? So what we can do is just talk about, hey, look, one thing that's good that came out of all this is the fact that the diaspora and African Americans, we helped shut down the U.S. Bases that was planned in Ghana. Remember that a couple of years
Right.
ago?
Right. Uh-huh.
You know, it was social media, and also the social media. We even changed Bodie Meyer. He was going to China and everything. Now he's beauty of Africa. Before he was like Africa and China, this African China mix. Whatever. Like, he's a good kid and everything. But people had to tell him, okay, look over there. That's not the real world. You know. And now he's like, oh, look at all the beautiful African women. Look at all our beautiful beaches. Look at all our continent, everything like that. That's because of social media. Social media and what like your brother was saying today, African Americans got a powerful role to play in Africa, you know. And if nothing else, these discussions right here that go out and stuff like that have a profound effect on the thinking, you know. But let's this thing with Africa and China is not cool. And people will tell me, well, Colin, Well, what do you Africa? Well, first of all, Africa, we don't have a government. If it was in our power, yes, we give Africa billions of dollars, but we don't have that power. We're not in power in America. We're not in power in America, so you can't hold us to the same level as China. They gave Africa $60 billion is nothing. There's 54 countries, right? If China gave $60 billion to the continent, right? That would in loans, right? Loans, right? That's $60 billion. That's less than probably $1 billion per country, right? And loans that they got to pay back over eventually, because after this coronavirus thing, the world's going to hold China. China's going to come in back for those loans. They're already trying to take over Zambia.
You think so? You think
Yeah.
so?
Well, I don't know how they're going to do it.
But I'm saying, but Colin, how is the world again? You kind of talked about it, but expand on it. How is the world going to hold China accountable? Like how and what leverage?
Well, one of the things, China has a lot of money and hold a lot of debt, right, in the U.S. Treasury. The United States could just say withhold that money, the Treasury notes that China has, and say, look, we're going to keep this, or they could put a tariff on Chinese goods, like 1,000%. So several different ways. One thing for other, but the thing is, China's still very powerful. But the bottom line is this, though: the United States just spent $2 trillion. Some of that money is going to, even if it ain't but half, some of that money is going to come from China, as far as like a tariff, excise tax, or whatever like that. From what I hear, the Chinese just bought the Waldorf Astoria hotel. When I was in upstate New York, the Chinese just built this new.
Has it opened yet? Because I know they've been doing the.
I think so. They said the Chinese bought it. I don't know if it's open.
Yeah, the Chinese bought it, but it's been under construction for like 4 years now, 4 or 5 years.
So Chinese bought the word. They're buying up American real estate left and right, and stuff like that. So China still relies on America for its initial technology, and science and stuff like that. So the Chinese are not out of the woods yet. So somewhere along the line, if you have a president that's going to stand in the Congress, that's going to stand up to the Chinese, they will eventually pay. But how this plays out in the future, the main thing right now is getting these numbers down, because it doesn't matter if we're all dead. We get these numbers under control. But then again, remember how we were told that someone was going to pay for the lie about weapons of mass destruction? Remember that? And that never happened. Remember Barack Obama told, the reason why I wrote for Obama, he said that he was going to go after the people who orchestrated the Iraq war, right? I was like, fuck, because I knew that war was a lie.
Right.
So I said, oh man, we're going to have a black man in the White House. He's going to get to the bottom of it and whatnot. He's going to bring Cheney to justice and all that. Man, was I freaking wrong.
Let me read the super chat real quick, Colin. We need to stop blaming Europeans and Chinese. The issue is the African leadership. They had no problem closing their borders due to COVID-19. That proved that they are in control. This is on us.
Yeah, I agree. The bottom line is this: we can't on one hand talk about Europeans, then on the other hand say, okay, well, we don't have any power. Yeah, you do have power. You have a power to let who comes in and out of your country. There's no Chinese contract. We say, Chinese and Indians are taking on contract. Well, who gave them the contract? Who let them in? It's the leadership. And the bottom line is this: if you see something happening in your country that you don't agree with, that's not in the best interest of your country, that means you don't have leadership, and it goes back to the whole thing. Okay, so then now what? The bottom line is this: remember something. In other countries, right, you have a military. There's African militaries don't defend their borders, right? They basically are there to basically quash uprising and protect the interests of foreign investment. The British came out of Africa and let Ghana manage what they had.
Right.
The British run South Africa, right? They'll let Mandela manage it. You manage it, you get a little stuff like that. It's been like since 1990, right? That's 30 years. It's been 30 years, right? And those homes that were promised, remember that, still aren't built. You still have people living in shanty down shacks and stuff.
Right. Yeah, because in fact, Colin, when I've been to Cape Town, South Africa. I've been to Cape Town. Like, man, when you leave the airport, it's so depressing because it's all shanty towns, and then you drive into just this beautiful, lush.
Well, I seen it.
Cape Town, Europeans walking the streets, And then, the South Africans, the native South Africans, black folks are working minimum wage jobs. Like it's just,
Yeah, yeah. But that's what it is. That's what happens when you don't have, you don't fight and go to war and everything. The Japanese and the Filipinos and all these other people, the Asians. Are you telling me that the Asians are stronger than black people? The Asians went to war. The Asians went to war. The problem, the reason why black people don't go to war with the Chinese or Asian and everything, because we don't have any self confidence in ourselves. We don't think that we can run a country without their investment, without their infrastructure, without their technology. We don't know how to take the technology and all that stuff like that and make it uniquely our own. See, once you don't see the one thing, if you don't need their infrastructure, the West's infrastructure, Africa's free. They're
right.
gonna they're gonna make sure that you need them, and they're gonna convince you, like Bill Gates, that the problem in Africa is we have to reduce the population.
Yeah,
You
depopulate.
know,
Yeah.
Prince, what's the one Prince, whatever said,
Cool.
what's it, Prince William said, Africa is problem in Africa is overpopulated as he has his third child. He has his third child, but he's telling Africa, you're having too many children. You mean too many black people? That's the problem. And so this idea of too many people came from this man named Thomas Malthus, right?
Right.
These guys, these racists. Look, the West is built by people who believe, right? This came from slavery, the British East Indies Company and everything. They basically said that, look, the threat to the white race is a number of people of color or non-white people. Their populations outnumber us. So how do we base it like this? Because they're saying that if the people of color are the majority in the world, eventually, if they develop, they're going to overtake us. There was this thing called the yellow peril, fear of yellow labor. They said
Right.
the white race. That's why if you look up research, the White Australia project, right? They said the reason why we don't want Asians in the country, right, is because white people have a higher standard of living, and the Chinese could live on less. So if you bring Chinese coolies over here, then the white man. Same thing happened in Oregon. Same thing happened in Washington State. Same thing. So you bring in Asian labor, right? Then the white race will have a lower standard of living. And this is what we have right now. And so, therefore, like I said, now the Chinese are. You would think they would learn from that racist history, right? You would think they would say, something. The same thing happened to us, right? Now we're doing the same thing to the black people, but they're not. Why? What does it tell you? Perfect example. Remember how if you look at Vietnam, remember Muhammad Ali said, "I'm not gonna kill no fellow poor people," right? Poor people. Remember that? The
Right.
Vietnamese did unto me. Go to Saigon and all these other places in Vietnam now. Now the city, you see Vietnam's infrastructure now.
Right.
You know,
That's beautiful. Yeah.
you see how developed they are in just one generation. They
Right.
got caught up with South Korea, and they're producing millionaires and billionaires every day. You
Right.
know, do you think they have the same sort of people of color like they did in the '60s? No,
No.
there's no what's his name Ho Chi Minh. I think what's his name Ho Chi Minh.
Ho
There's
Chi
no
Minh.
Ho Chi. There's
Yeah.
no Ho Chi Minhs. That live right now. Black people have to get out of this idea that there's some people of color unity. The only thing you have, Africans, is Black America. We're the only friends you really have in this
Right.
world. That's it. If you find a way how to link with Black America, like I said, it's hard. Because, like I said, how many things will we talk about on the continent, dynasty, whatnot, and everything's from moving so slow. We can't get them to freaking to the table and everything and say, look, we got this over here, we got colleges and everything like here. We have a African American business group just put up $350 billion in Uganda.
Right.
We should be shouting for real. Another group is bringing billions to Namibia, African Americans, right? And so all these people, instead of Africans, say, wow, we got people, African Americans could bring these sort of investment. Not just that, they got to connect. You got to have three things you got to have when you build a movement. There's three things, right? Three things you have to have. First of all, you have to have visibility, right? The Pan-Africanists and everything like that are not visible. Only people that's visible are the Hoteppers, the conspiracy theorists, and all these other people. The people that could actually do business in Black America that's interested in building Africa, they're not visible, right? When you establish visibility, the next thing you have to do is establish credibility. That's number two,
Right.
credibility. Once you have credibility by making sure deals are done, your business practices and everything like that, you know, then the last thing you establish after you have visibility, credibility, you have trust, public trust. Once you have, you can only do that by having institutions that tell your message over and over again, right? And showcase this is what we're doing, right? We're not doing that. There hasn't been no one interviewed those brothers that's in Uganda with that $300 million deal. You know, there's no one that sat down and said, "What's going on? Let's tell the black world the good news. This is what we're doing. Let's inspire Africa." Yeah, there are alternatives to China. You
Yeah.
know, it's not saying that we're going to get rid of China altogether, but there needs to be a balance because we have established visibility, credibility, and established trust. You know, and once we establish trust in everything, then what we're doing, we won't have to argue anymore. It'll just happen naturally. We'll just be sitting there talking. Oh yeah, by the way, this happened over here.
Right.
Oh, we know that's going to happen. Okay, like that. Why? Because trust has been established. You know, but so that's what we have to do. You know, and the bottom line, we have to have Pan Africanism has to be a two-way street. It
Right.
can't be all one way.
Right.
You know, we have to get something out of this. If you're asking, if Africans want us on the continent, want us to build and everything, then they have to basically give something up. You know, because we cannot put ourselves at risk, right? Because we're still here in the United States, right? You know, I saw a Native Born. You see Native Born, the guy does the thing with Ghana.
Yeah. What's going on now with him?
Well, he's stuck in Thailand.
He's still in Thailand.
Yeah.
Well, his son. I think is one of his kids with special needs, and I think in order to
No, he couldn't. No, he couldn't get out of Thailand. Ghana
oh,
wouldn't
because
give
of
him that.
the COVID, because of
Yeah,
COVID.
COVID. You know, no, where Ghana evacuated people, citizens from Thailand, right? He couldn't get on.
Yeah, because he's not a Ghanaian citizen.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. You know, he's telling people go to Africa, do that like that, right? But when it comes down to it, right, we don't
Because
do it.
let me stop you right here. So this is the thing, though, and I brought this up. So I remember when I went to Africa. People were talking repatriation. I repatriated.
Right.
So I asked a simple question. Oh man, that's great. So you're a citizen now, and they were like, no. I'm like, well, in my head, I'm like, okay, how can you fully repatriate if you're not a citizen? So I think and then I was just kind of confused because I'm thinking, okay, you repatriated. Oh, you got your citizenship. Because that's how I look at it.
Right.
But,
Yeah, that's what you should look at.
Yeah, but they were like, no, we don't have a citizenship yet. And then there's even some who were like, kind of like justifying, like are trying to articulate there's really no need to get the citizenship. Like, are you crazy?
We cannot let the people like that run it. That's a problem. Those type of people think like that are the face of Pan Africa. And anybody well-thinking person, who may have something like the offer, like, I don't want to be involved with these fools, because everybody knows that citizenship or permanent residency, wherever like that, or if you get in trouble like overseas, you could be evacuated. You got certain rights and stuff like that under the laws of that particular country.
Right.
Other than that, you're just a visitor. And then, like I said, I hope that he didn't renounce his American citizenship.
No, they didn't. But my thing is, I would be fighting tooth and nail to find out a way to get dual citizenship.
Right. And like I said, I understand.
You try to get on the plane to go back to Ghana, but they're like, well, hold on. Like, are you a citizen? No. Well, no, I can't help you out.
He's like, I'm an African. See, as I said, we as black people, we're emotional. And like I said, these laws mean something, at the wrong times. Laws mean something always at the wrong time. You can have laws on the books and whatnot, and nobody pays attention to them or whatnot. But when you really actually need it, whatever, oh, wait, the law says this right here. Like, wow, you're stuck. That is the law. If you're not a Ghanaian citizen, you can't come back. Citizen means something. And I understand the fact that countries guard their citizenship with everything because, like I said, America is like, okay, whatever, you're a rich country, whatever like that. But when these countries, the one thing they have is their citizenship, right? And the fact that being a citizen of that country really means something, right? It's like what separates me from an African American who's walking out here is I'm a citizen of this country, right? This is my home. This is why he may be visiting here, but he's not a citizen. That's why they basically don't give out citizens because they want to make sure you understand that when it really comes down to it, right, you're just a visitor, whatever, like that's what it comes down to. Now you can come here, do business, do whatever you want. but don't get out of line. Don't ask too much, or don't, whatever. So that's the way it is. Sad part about it is this. But like I said, the other people, the Chinese and everything, they got a backup plan. Their government's going to back them out. Something happened in Ghana, there's going to be a Chinese plane or wherever plane to help them out. Help them out, help them back into their own country.
Right.
It's all over. It's like that all over the world. Everybody has a backup plan. But you would think somebody coming from the most developed country in the world be like, okay, we got to get this, this, that, and the other thing, and you enjoy Ghana, live there, make money. But but when it comes down to something like that, the fact that you expect to be evacuated out, you're not a citizen, you can't show proper documentation and everything, and documentation means something in this world, So that's it. Anybody want to ask me questions?
Yeah. Any question you want to take? I know you got the conference call in
Oh
18.
yeah. I can wait. I got 15 minutes. Okay. Anybody want to come on?
Anybody? Listen, we'll take one call. So
I'd
guys,
love to hear from Mike. We'd love to hear from Mike.
Mike.
Nigerian guy.
Oh, Mike. Is Mike on? Mike, are you on, Mike? If you want to call in, we'll take one call. Send an email to send an email here, and you can call in. Okay.
Yeah, but like I said, the bottom line is this: the words I'm speaking right now is something Marcus Garvey said 100 years ago to the date. 100 years old to the date. He said, "Look, and W.E.B. Boy said the problem is a color line, right?" Now people get confused. Oh, we're all people with color. Look, what you see in the club or the nightclub, rap videos and everything is not the real world. The real world is the Chinese. First and foremost Chinese. The Europeans are first and foremost Europeans. While they're coming to Africa partying and doing all that stuff with you and everything, they're first and foremost Europeans. And they'll like you to when they get what they want out of you, whatever. But the black people around the world are the only people that want this thing about color and race to disappear. Other people walk around the world. I'm Chinese. That's it. I know where I belong. I know where I fit in. I know who I am. I know my history. I know everything. Right? I'm never going to be Chinese. I'm never going to be anything else.
Hold on
right?
1 second, guys. If you want to call in, you got to send me an email. Huru@searchforhuru.com. Send me an email, and I'll send you the link. I'll go ahead.
Yeah. So like I said, the other people, other races that are strong, they understand who they are, and that's it. And the fact that people are shocked about what the Chinese did, I'm a little. What I don't understand is this: the Chinese are going to be dependent on Africa for the next decade, right? As far as like even just getting their money back, right? The Chinese don't even care about the retaliation of Africans because they know
they're not going to retaliate.
Because they know it's going to be either weak, one or two Chinese are going to get beat up and everything. But the bottom is Africans have, after all these years, we just have a fear of other races. We fear other races. We fear other races. We have no self-respect, whatever it takes to stand up to other people, and that's the sad part about it. And to be humiliated like that across the globe, and then try to get a play on world sympathy, And I said to myself, wow, all my entire lifetime, I'm still seeing this black humiliation. And that's what it really comes down to. People don't think you're human like they are. So they can humiliate you. They can do whatever they want to you. Why? Because they don't think nothing of Africa, right? You are what they think of your race, no matter what you think. You got a lot of people that are upscale, that Ghanaians and Nigerians. Oh, I'm different. I'm different. I come from this background. I got this degree, whatever like that. It does not matter. It does not matter what you say, what your degree is, how many languages you speak. The only thing they see is you're black. That's all they see in this world. It does not matter. Until Africa is strong, that can stand up to himself and tell the Chinese, you can get the hell out of here. We don't need you. If you want to invest, that's fine. If you're not, get the hell out of here. Until that part happens, it'll never happen. And one of the fastest ways how to do that is by building relationship with black people from all over the world, particularly the African Americans and the African diasporas. If we're giving a shot, we should not have to compete with the Chinese. Thank you, PJ. We should not have to compete with the Chinese in our own goddamn motherland. The Chinese collar. I've been hearing this all the time. Chinese collar, man. You African Americans, man. So you blaming us for being in America? You guys should have came back a long time ago and did something. Correct me if I'm wrong and whatnot. Didn't they basically deport the man that was trying to do it, Marcus Garvey? Remember that? And then
they deported him from America.
They deported him from America. They deported him from America, right? And then they refused. And
Hold
then
on, caller, we got a caller.
Okay, hello, caller.
Go ahead, Kid. Go ahead.
Hello, can you hear me?
We hear you. Go ahead.
Hi, Carla. How are you?
Hey,
Hi, Dynast. Hey, just to give you a quick background, been listening to your show for quite some time. A lot of valid points. Love listening to it. A lot of valid points. And Dynast, I'm actually happy to see you. Or at least you're recovering.
Thank you.
Yeah. Carla, listen to you a lot. I'm from Nigeria, and
Okay.
Niger.
I'm on Niger. How far now?
Oh, Mowa Dada.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm from Nigeria. I'm actually from the Niger Delta region of Nigeria.
Okay.
Wow.
Yeah, so I'm from the South. Went to school in the US. And I live in Toronto now. But I go to Nigeria several times a year. I have projects I do in Nigeria, and everything else. So a lot of things are going on. A lot of moving parts. Carla, I think you are spot on with the stuff you're talking about. Funny enough, I live in Toronto, but I have more friends in the United States than I do in Toronto, and yeah, over 95% of them are African Americans. So I can relate to everything you said. I think you're spot on. I really have no key arguments with anything you said, but some of the things that I think about as it relates to some of the ideas you suggested regarding Africa, giving contracts to Europeans or the Asians, specifically the Chinese. You look at that situation, and then you look at African Americans, right? I know the African American community very well. Family, friends, everything, like I said, and part of the situation I look at is that African Americans, their spending power, if you were to take that spending power into consideration, they would be one of the largest, at least the top 10 in terms of spending in billions of dollars in the world, right? And I look at that situation and I look at Africa and I say, look, okay, I've applied for jobs in the United States and I was overqualified and they hired a white counterpart just because, hey, yeah, he had the complexion for the connection or whatever you want to call it. But then at the end of the day, he got the job and I didn't, right? And I look at Africa and I always wonder, oftentimes a big contract comes out, a new oil contract. Dynast, I don't know if you know this, but in Osun State, they found gold.
Really?
Yeah.
I think somebody told me that.
In Osun, there's gold. In Zamfara, there's actually gold. And as I know, last year, the Chinese, some Chinese thugs were in Zamfara and just illegally acquiring the gold on their own. I know Buhari's government had to eventually step in, but I look at this thing and then I look at African American community and I say, look, how come African Americans aren't bidding for these contracts? How come African Americans aren't as a group coming together to reach out to Buhari to say, hey, look, you guys have this new contract coming up.
I'm gonna tell you why. Let me cut you. I'm gonna tell you why. In the words of Holopsism, African Americans hate America, but they love America.
Yeah. And also the ones that do go there, we got brother John Cashin. He's trying, and we got brother Heru's working on some stuff in Nigeria. But like I said, the thing is, what we have to do is, like I said, first thing is socialization. We got to get to know each other. We can't just, like I said, I took my time to get to know a lot of Nigerians over the years and stuff like that. I got a lot in my area right here. I have a lot of Nigerian friends. I got friends from Gambia and whatnot. They fit right in, Black America. There's no African Americans. we got people in my city that contractors that are Nigerians, Gambians, and Ghanaians and stuff like that. And so we socialize, And when we socialize with each other, right, it's like this, like a family, We crack on each other every once in a while. We say things, but we're pretty much a family. When we start socializing with each other, right, and the thing is, when we socialize, it can't be all about fun and games, We can't socialize with African Americans when it comes to partying and stuff like that. But yet, when it comes to business and whatnot, it's all with the Chinese and the Lebanese and the white people, We have to basically, and that's just not with just African Americans, but it's also with Ghanaians. I'm sure between the Ghanaians and the Nigerians alone, right there's a brain pool, right? But the reason why they're not together is because lack of socialization. Everybody's in their own tribal group, in their own class, They think, okay, well, I'm not with that person, whatever like that. But the thing is, with your other people, they're socialized with Asians, socialize with each other. They got their own social clubs and stuff like that. They're organized. When they go to different countries, they got what they call pools. Where people buy. Indians do the same thing, where they put the money into a pool.
Well, they got it. Well, they do it here too, Kala. Susu.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the thing is, I always ask about my Susu friends and whatnot. Or is it just exclusively for Jamaicans and like that? What if we expanded the Susu and make it an official thing that we're part of, where you don't have to be a Jamaican, you could be African American, you could be a Trinidadian, whatever like that, And the whole thing is, if we do that, we have those sort of social clubs, we have annual events and stuff like that, right? It's easy to go to a government and say, look, I'm representing this Susu right here. I represent this. We could pull together $10 million easily. This is what we want. Money talks, right? We're organized. But the problem is that, is black people are not organized. We're just not organized with each other when it comes to money. And we're organized with each other all the time when it comes down to partying, complaining about women, chasing booty.
Not only party, they're doing F coronavirus parties. We organize.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. Anytime foolishness is around, you can find African Americans. When there's foolishness and stupidity and everything, there's African Americans. But when it comes down to actually getting business and everything, it doesn't happen. I mean, people do business with their families sometimes and everything, but we have never been a people that's been serious about business. We always been about working for white people or doing whatever, and then pretending like we're loving it.
Well, let me ask you this. Let me ask you this. So, you have established African American groups, right? And rightfully so. A lot of them have their criticisms, and I'm talking specifically about, the Congressional Black Caucus. I'm talking specifically about the Urban League. I'm talking about these groups who've come together. I remember one time, right, when President Trump was in office and he had the State of the Union address, and members of the Congressional Black Caucus showed up all in kente cloth. I don't know if you guys remember that.
I remember that.
They all showed up in kente cloth. I'm sitting down watching this, and I'm like, hell yeah, this is cool, right? I'm looking at this.
It's all surface.
Not serious.
It's all sorry because their real agenda is the LGBTQ, illegal aliens. Feminism, open borders. All these other things that has nothing to do with black. And Congressional Black Caucus, I call it the Congressional Black Caucus. They basically are. Let me give you examples, bro. A congressman is supposed to only be in office on the average like 6 years. Then you go. We're the only group of people that have lifetime appointments. They're appointed by the DNC.
John Lewis. Hold on, Carla. Where since this coronavirus broke out, where's John Lewis, Maxine Waters?
Oh, they have nothing to say. They have nothing to say. They have nothing because the bottom line, they have nothing because the whole thing is. Maxine Waters, her constituencies are the illegal aliens. Let me tell you something. Politically in Black America right here, the only thing we could do is build social power, right? Social power and cultural power among Black people and Black people in America. That'll show some strength. But politically, Black America's this. The only time they show up in our communities when they want us to vote. And they got to tell us when we vote. Can you actually tell me any seriously that you look at this idiot Joe Biden and whatnot, that I'm enthusiastic about going out to vote for this clown? I gotta look at that idiot. I can't even look at him for his I'm sorry. Let me start all over again. It's a joke. And so the bottom line, Black politics in America, they've done a job on Black politics in America. brother, we need to focus on the black business people, the Pan-Africanists, the people's interest in Africa. That's where the power is. The mainstream media is trying to make sure none of this exists. You know, like we have the brother. Diane had a brother a couple of weeks ago that has the talk about the global supply chain of African goods. He has a group. I want to meet that brother, Diane. You got to hook me up with him. So I got some people.
He's in Detroit, I think. Is he in Detroit?
Yeah, I tried. I pull up his website and everything. I'm not really into websites and everything. I try to like that. But I'm gonna try to contact him, but I want to make sure that he knows who I am or whatever like that. But I got some people that definitely could work with him. That's ready to go.
Yeah, because you know what I mean. Every year, a number of things come up. In Nigeria, there are 36 states. Each state has a governor. These guys,
that's the beauty about it.
Yeah, everyone has their opinion, right? Governors operate independently. Each state has its resources, right? You have African Americans, and a lot of time these guys they have their backs to the wall, right? They don't have any negotiating power. They're faced with a situation where they're like, well, we want to develop this, we want to do that. We don't have the cash, right? So here comes a little Lebanese company. Here comes a little Indian company.
Yeah.
Might not even be a big one. Might just have access to loans and cash and come in and say, hey, well, look, we'll come in here and bid this and get this, and you guys have to give us rights for 25 years, right?
Right.
The governor's like, damn, I want to get reelected in a couple of years. So yeah, I'll let these guys come in and own a plantation of palm trees and get palm oil, and they'll transport that palm oil to the port in Lagos, and then those guys are exported out and start making, using that in their country, and that money stays in their country and doesn't come back to Africa, right? But if you have African Americans who have
a huge market here in America, you got a huge market.
Yeah, and you have a number of Nigerians in United States who are connected, and these African Americans, if they were to connect with those brothers, they could say, hey, look, I want to find out which opportunities are viable. I want to be able to bid for it. I want to be able to get the contracts for this. And in the Nigerian law, it has a local content law where if you come in and you bid for something, you have to have a local company that's also involved, right? Which is fine.
That's good.
But,
that's a good
but if you do that, it's easy to find a local content company in Nigeria. Of course, you have to do. I'll tell you this: you have to do your homework and make sure it's a legit.
It should be a qualified.
Correct.
Qualified Nigerian, not just somebody a puppet that you put, because they do
Correct.
that in America. They'll have we need a minority on your board. They'll pick some random black guy, give him some crumbs, and say, see, we got a minority here. We got
which is what they do. And he won't know anything about it. He won't know anything about it. He'll turn around and say, hey, look, as long as I'm getting paid, you guys can do whatever you want.
Right, and that right there, because you know why in Nigeria it's completely unnecessary. First of all, Nigeria has 200 million people, right? You have the domestic market. Like, I was a huge fan of President Sani Abacha. I remember back in the 90s, right? I used to debate with people all the time, right? And Abacha this, Abacha that. But he did all the right things. He brought Nigeria's inflation down from 35% down to 8%, right? He's the reason why you have Aliko Dangote. He said, look, we have the market right here in Nigeria. Let's start processing stuff here. We don't need to export. The structural adjustment programs in Nigeria where they didn't want Nigeria manufacturing their own stuff, whatever they want, they tell you what to produce and you produce it for France, whoever like that. So Nigeria's like, well, we don't have food here. So you go import, sell it back to France, back to Nigeria. Facts. Nigeria said, no, we're going to get rid of structural adjustment programs and do it on. And they basically wanted his head,
Carla, the thing is, Abacha, you're absolutely right, by the way. That piece he did was solid. And Buhari right now is trying to actually do the same thing. I don't know if you know this, but Nigeria's borders to Benin Republic and some other places are currently closed because you have a lot of goods coming in. Exactly.
Right. I was just talking about that.
Yeah, because Nigeria's
not going to go along with this free trade zone. I think they see something.
Yeah, they because Nigeria has the biggest market, right? In terms of spending power, and they're looking at the situation saying, what do we really have to gain from this, right? And that's the question. And I tell you something else about this free trade program, right? You have Chinese guys and you have people from other countries, right, residing in other African countries, and they've been trying to get access to the Cote d'Ivoire market, to the Ghana market, to the Nigerian market, and they can't. Right. But you have this free trade zone now, and they're well established in Tanzania or in Kenya or in Zambia. Now
Right.
you've just given them free access to those West
Brother,
African
man,
markets.
we need you on this show more. It's shouting
Now, I try to listen a lot more and take in a lot of information. You know, Dynas
Right.
has some remarkable people on the
Let
show.
me say something. Sister T. Kelly said, "This is what I'm talking about. The propaganda." She said Abacha stole billions. No, Abacha was trying to recover the billions. You know what I'm saying? This is what tells me what a joke the media is. Abacha came in there and started putting people in jail because they were siphoning out money, billions of dollars. He recovered a lot of money, and they tried to make it seem like he was the one stealing the money. You know?
And you recall Abacha had Louis Farrakhan in Nigeria during that time?
Yeah, I remember that. You know, he
Yeah,
was like
yeah.
Farrakhan did on White Wall. Say, yo, why are you attacking these brothers? You know,
Yeah.
you know, Nigeria. I really thought Bill Clinton was going to invade Nigeria. I really thought so. After that Ken Saro-Wiwa situation,
Oh yeah, that was terrible.
Golan
Yeah.
Land, I thought the United States, and I thought, because Black Panther, this guy Daruba said, yo, look, what are they gonna say? Colin Powell to invade Nigeria? We'll ask these questions. What do we do with the United States or not? We call ourselves Americans, everything. What happens when they get in conflict with a black country? So they've been trying to discredit Nigeria for a generation. Oh, it's a corrupt country. It's blah, blah, blah. To turn Black America against Nigeria, you know? So they've been doing that for a long time and succeeding. Like somebody make a comment about Abacha stealing money. That's Western media propaganda. So the bottom line, we just have to know more about what's going on in the continent, right? We want to be the protectors and the vanguard. And here, that's what the role we can't have in America. When people start talking all this stuff, they always get it. Well, they always find some dissident. You ever notice that Africa has all these professional dissidents?
Yeah.
Like Wally Soyinka and whatnot. As soon as somebody don't go their way, they're according to Wally Soyinka, I'm like, everybody's a professional dissident, and all they do is get invited to a round table, appear on TV, they get a free meal, hotel for a day.
Well, Kyle, here's what it is, right? It's like this, right? You look at this situation, right? You have, and Dynas going to attest to this as well. Mm-hmm. There are a lot of things wrong in Nigeria.
Yeah,
right?
There is.
There are a lot of things wrong, and sometimes the people that get elected into power exacerbate the things that are wrong, right? And then you have people locally that speak up against those people, saying, "Hey, why are you doing our own kind like this? Like, why are kids finishing school at 2:00 and they don't have anything else to do till 7 p.m.? Why do we have hospitals where people are still dying of malaria? This should never happen, right? So, and how come you have a foreign bank account in the UK or you have a foreign bank account in the Caymans? Like, what's going on, right? So these people speak out against
Nigerian banks,
yeah. So what happens is the BBC or some of these international outlets now get these people and put them on their platform to say, "Hey, look, we told you, right?"
Yeah,
this is one of their own people saying this, but it's twisted in a way where, how Callie, sometimes I listen to you, you criticize your own, right? And rightfully so. It's almost like a family member telling you what's good for you, right? And I see people's reactions sometimes. I laugh because they don't like what you're saying, right? But it's coming from a place of love, right? So similarly, you have people in Nigeria who criticize their own government, coming from that same place of love to say, "Listen, we could be 10 times better than this, 10 times better than this, and we're not because you are killing us. You are stealing money from your own kind. You're taking this money and you're putting it in a white man's bank to enrich them, and your people can't even get access to basic facilities, right?" So they're saying this, and then the media abroad invites those people on.
Right. Come on over.
Why don't you come talk about Nigeria?
Come on over. See,
And so that person comes on.
The media has no interest of solving the problem. They just want to smear the whole country.
Smear the whole country. So that person feeds into their narrative.
People realize that.
Correct. That person feeds into their narrative to say, "Oh, well," it's almost like this, right? All these things you're saying. Imagine if Fox News had you on and you said the exact same thing on Fox News.
Mm-hmm.
Negroes are this, Negroes are that. They'll be like, well, we told you. See, that's what they do. That's exactly what they do. So
people, when I talk about black people, I'm talking in house. This is family.
Exactly.
Now, I would not go on a major newspaper and say the exact same things. As far as you're concerned, our people are right. We'll deal with our people and everything.
Exactly.
I could say, okay, what a bunch of shiftless Negroes we are sometimes, but that's not for you to say. I'm not gonna say it to you.
Exactly.
You're gonna take that and try to weaponize it against my own people.
That's what they do. That's exactly what they do. And they'll be like, "Well, look, Wale Soyinka said it, and he's a Nobel laureate. So guess what? he must be right.
Yeah,
And that's,
he's a disappointment. He was a disappointment. The Boyle Inca was a disappointment. You
you know,
know, he was
the thing
disappointing.
in Nigeria, and sometimes a lot of times you see this in Nigeria, they'll use tribal issues to politicize situations, right? So
Yep.
they'll say, oh, like right now, the narrative you're hearing is Buhari's trying to Fulanize Nigeria, right? So
Right.
Hey, real quick, let me ask you this: when they say so my friends keep saying that the presidential seat or election is going to go to the southeast next year because it's like it's supposed to rotate. What do they mean by that? I
so
Abacha's
so
starting.
yeah, so here's the thing, right?
uh-huh.
They have it's not in law. It's a gentleman's agreement between certain ruling parties, right? They feel like, okay, we're going to put up a candidate. If this candidate comes up from the north, then next time we're going to rotate the candidacy to either the southwest or the southeast or the south. So I'll give you an example. When Jonathan Goodluck, who happens to be where I'm from, was president, right? He fell into the presidency by luck, if you will,
Yeah.
because
Okay.
Yaradua died.
He's
Right?
Ejo, right?
He's
He's
Ijaw, yeah,
Ejo,
Ijaw, yeah. I'm
yeah.
Ijaw as well. So
Okay.
Yaradua died,
Smart
abruptly.
people. E-Jaws are smart people, bro.
Yeah, we have our problems too because of that oil, and
Yeah.
I could go on that for the next 2 hours, but it's a whole crazy situation. So Yaradua passed away
Mm-hmm.
abruptly, right? So the North at that time, the gentleman's agreement was that the North was going to have the presidency. This was after Obasanjo,
Mm-hmm.
right? So when Yaradua came in and he died, Jonathan Goodluck was his VP.
All right.
So ideally, Jonathan Goodluck was not supposed to run for office. He was supposed to take a back seat and let someone else from the North come in because that was the gentleman's agreement they had in the PDP. Now, what happened was the militants in the Niger Delta said, nah, we're never going to get a chance to the presidency. And if you don't run, don't ever come back here. So that was the time where they had the kidnappings and they had movement for the emancipation of Niger Delta, and they had armed struggle, and they were kidnapping oil workers and blowing
Right.
up oil facilities and those things, right? So they said that to him. He was forced to run for office. He didn't want to. So he ran and he won and he became president. Funny thing is, not too long after he became president, the Boko Haram thing jumped off, right?
Yeah.
And that was a scary piece because conspiracy theorists will have you believe, I'm saying conspiracy theory because there's no evidence to it, but they'll have you believe that the folks in the North were so upset that he didn't let them keep power, so they started an armed insurrection through Boko Haram. But then Boko Haram got out of hand. But then, anyways, he ran, and then after he lost his second term run to Buhari, and then Buhari became president. Now Buhari is gone. He's going to go on 8 years. Now, when he gets done, the APC, which is Buhari's party,
Right.
they are meant to have a gentleman's agreement just to prevent anger on a tribal front,
Right.
that it should rotate to another region.
I hope he does.
And the Igbos, the Igbos have not had power in Nigeria, especially after Biafra.
Yeah.
Because after Biafra, if you notice anything about Nigerian history, after Biafra, everything got centralized at the federal level because they were so scared of regions seceding from the country.
Right.
So everything got centralized, and Igbos have not had a chance to run.
Let me ask you a question. What would make Biafra? Like I said, I have people talking about, IPOP, moving for independence of Biafra. I said, look, I said, what would make you happy? Oh, we want to succeed from that. What is this idea that you're going to succeed from like that? Why not have a federal system? Why not try to get your own province, your own state? And if you want to do that, have your cultural integrity. You could do whatever you want. You have your own local district courts.
Well, Kyle, technically, a Namur state is
a state.
They want to Biafra.
Yeah,
they want
yeah.
provide.
There's several. Dennis is right. There's several Igbo states, right? Anambra, Enugu, Imo. All of them are Igbo states, 100%. And those governors.
Biafra is an ideology.
Yes, Biafra is an ideology, and these people, IPOB and Nnamdi Kanu, feel that that ideology. It's almost like the Confederacy in the United States, right? People that still fly the Confederate flag. They feel That's our heritage. Like when I was in the United States, I would have arguments with these people, and they'll say, "Well, that's our heritage." And I'm like, "Well, can a German really argue that the Nazi flag is their heritage as well?" Well,
Right.
no, they killed Jews. I'm like, "Well, you guys killed African Americans. What's your point?" Right? So it's that same thing. And IPOP believe Biafra is our heritage and we want to secede. Kala, here's the problem. Nigeria has 300 ethnic groups.
Right.
So even within the Igbo, there are smaller ethnic groups. So even if Biafra, and the question is, okay, if you form Biafra, where does it start and where does it end? Is it just Igbo
Right.
states? Do you include Delta, Bayelsa, Rivers?
Right,
That'll be
right. So my friends, they wanted to include some of the Delta states and even all the way to Calabar. But
You
then
see,
they were like, and then
yeah,
my friends like who Calabarian and the Delta say like, no, we don't want to be
no,
part of it.
yeah,
we
that's
want,
not
we
gonna
want part
work.
of Biafra, you know.
Yeah, that's not
Especially
gonna work.
look at the guy that's the people that's leading it, man. These guys are fanatics, you know. They beat up a freaking one of the ministers in Germany last year. You know, remember
Yeah,
that?
they did.
You know,
They did.
you know?
And that's not gonna work because you know why? In Calabar, in Cross River State, where Calabar is, goodness, you have at least 20 ethnic groups. Those guys are not going to be one. They're not going to want to be under the Igbo, and neither are the people in Delta states. You have at least another 15 ethnic groups. Those guys are not going to want to be under the Igbo. So what they're saying, it's a kind of like a pie in the sky ideology that's really not going to fly. Because at the end of the day, Nigeria needs to stay together. Because here's the thing:
It does.
if Nigeria does not stay together, that means Africa cannot unite. And
Right.
and I say that because Nigeria has 300 ethnic groups. Africa has how many? Lord knows. I've lost count, right? And
No.
and if you cannot keep Nigeria together, then that means Africa can't stay together. And I always tell people, I'm a jaw, but I'm Nigerian first,
Yeah.
right? Because at the end of the day, yes, we were colonized by the British and they forced us to come to one country, but regardless, we're here now.
We're here now.
We're here now. We're all black.
Yeah, I
And
hate that when some Nigerians say, "Oh,
And listen, hold on,
1915."
stop the show. Hold on. All right, listen, we're not gonna do the tribalism today in
Right.
the chat room, okay?
Yeah.
We're not
And
going to do the
we
tribalism.
got to get beyond that. Don't you understand that we're like
Here we go.
black people are like 2,000 years behind the rest of the world with this tribalism? You're black first, you know, black state, black republic, Afghanistan. We need a black state. We need a strong black state, a republic, you know. And then if you want to fuse, I believe in tribal fusion, you know. You
yeah,
know, I'm a
yeah.
little bit of Yoruba, but I'm a little bit of Igbo too. I'm a little bit of Mendi, but I'm a little bit of Congolese. You know, let's
Yeah,
a little
you
mix
know
them
what? Let me
all up
let me tell
together.
you a funny story, man. When I first came to the United States, and I would hang with my African American brothers, and they would say stuff like, "Oh man, so you from Africa, man?" I'm like, "Well, I'm from Nigeria." They're like, "Yeah, but that's in Africa, right?" I'm like, "Yeah." And they'll look at me, and you could see in their eyes like all these questions rolling, but they won't say anything, right?
Yeah.
And one time, this one guy was like, "Y'all wear clothes over there?" And I'm like, "Yeah, we
Oh
wear
man.
clothes. Yeah, I swear to you, man." I said, "Yeah, we wear clothes over." This dude is still my friend till today, Cal. I promise you.
Yeah.
And you know what? Some cats laughed and all that, and I was like, "Guys, listen, man." I said, "There's a lot of stuff happening in Africa you guys got to know about." And later on, when no one was there, he came back to me. He's like, "Bro," I'm like, "What's up?" He's like, "Oh man, I want to go to Africa so bad." I'm like, "For real?" He's like, "Yeah."
That's most African Americans.
Yeah, he started,
Yo,
and then I started telling him all these things about Africa. And he's like, "No way, for real?" I'm like, "Yeah." And then you know what? A lot of them ended up being that way. So what I realized was that there was a lot of curiosity and a lot of stuff they don't know. And a lot of them used to say to me, "Hey, bro, listen, honestly, you know they don't teach us anything about
of
Africa here.
course.
Like
Everything I learned was on
even
my
when we do Black History Month, it starts from when we were slaves. It doesn't start from anything before that." So I used to spend hours just talking about Nigeria, about Togo, about Ghana, about Mali, about Timbuktu, about the
right.
Jen, about the Dogon, about Senegalese, and they'll be like, "No way!" I'm like, "Yeah, yeah."
That's
You know, so
exactly what I found. You know, and I've always been fascinated with West African history. I study West African history so intense, right? Like I said, my next novel is going to be based on the Mali Empire. You know, I'm putting it together now. My next novel is going to be based on the Mali Empire. And basically, when I said like I was so when I used to read about the messengers of Katsina, you know,
yeah,
Kanu, and
yeah,
the chain on chain with the chain Gomery. I was like, man, this must have been some beautiful time period in medieval West Africa. You know, I learned about the Dogons. I learned about the Mbaras. I learned about Taiwan. People remember that mask that Killmonger wore. It had that
Yeah.
was Taiwan. People don't know who that was. That's Taiwan. That's the god of agriculture in the
Yeah.
Mendi, in the Bambara, you know. And I studied the Nyamakala, the craft group system, you know, which I built put my name after, you know. So I studied all this stuff. And as a kid, you know, I was always fascinated about history. You know, I studied
Well,
the world.
Kala, that's your history, though. You see what I'm saying? Like
Right.
that's your
You know
history.
something? I was so you tell you something. When I found out about African history, right? I was like, "There's no way I came from this." I was so, I was like, "Whoa!" I said, I was like in shock. I was like, I got to be like, maybe I'm not African. There's no way I could come from this greatness. You know, I was like, my answer, we built this, we did this. You know, I was just so. And now I said, well, that's my motherland. I'm like, my God. So as a kid, I fell in love with the continent. You know, like I said, I can't wait to go there. You know?
Kala, listen, brother, I'll tell you something, man. African Americans hold a lot of power in this world in terms of what can happen with Africa. I was actually hoping and praying after Black Panther that directors like Spike Lee and
I
all
love
these
Spike Lee.
guys,
That's Spike Lee. That's
I was
Spike
hoping
Lee.
and praying that they would take up African stories and tell, kind of like Mansa Musa, some of these other
Bro,
guys,
why?
like they
Yo,
would
let me
make a
tell you something, brother.
movie about this.
I have read so many books on Julius Caesar. I have read so many books on Socrates. All these history, the battles of Normandy and whatnot, the Vikings and
Yeah,
everything. And we watch History Channel. All that history
that's all they talk
displayed.
about.
They
That's all they
could they
talk
could
about.
read they could reenact. Well, he thought this. How do because everything's so documented. The Arabs tried to burn down the books in Timbuktu a few years ago. Remember that?
Yeah, they did.
A lot of
Yeah,
those books
yeah, yeah.
they saved a lot of those books, but a lot of those books are records. What went on day to day life in there, and they translated from Arabic to English. And I'm saying, where is that so-called Pan African that's saying those books right there is going to tell us for hundreds of years what people did, what they ate, what they saw, every day to day life. They kept records in Timbuktu, you know, in West
Yeah.
Africa. You mean tell me we could lose? If we let these idiots, you know, this what's it called, Boko Haram, whoever the hell they are,
Go
you know,
burn it up.
destroy
Yeah.
our history. We should be over there. That's what the Black College Studies should be doing. You know, forget about Egypt. You know,
So,
we should
but
be in West
what
Africa.
about Henry Louis Gates Jr.? Like he's chronicled a lot of that stuff, and he's
Yeah,
But he doesn't.
you gotta
But he doesn't
understand.
go into
Wait, no, hold on.
detail.
You gotta understand too. Who's funding them? Like, you
That's
know,
true. That's a thing too. You know, who's funding them? What's important? What's important to us and whatnot. We should be funding having the institutions preserving our history and stuff like that. You know, and basically make sure that these movies, when they get written, okay, then you step to Hollywood and stuff like that. We're gonna make a feature movie. Now you don't need Hollywood. You got Netflix. You
yeah,
know,
yeah, yeah.
you get it out there. But the thing is, a lot of so-called Hollywood black people, if it ain't on Hollywood, if they ain't on a red carpet, they don't want Netflix. They don't want alternative media. They don't want independent. They'll say,
they want
if you ain't on,
Hollywood.
if you ain't
Yeah, they
on
want
trying to get an
Hollywood.
Oscar in Hollywood, whatever, say they don't
Yo,
want nothing
yo,
to do with it.
yo,
And then
Carla,
also,
you
it
know what
has
I
to
read the
sell
other
to white.
day? I was reading the other day that the Moors who ruled in Spain for 800 years came from the Mauritania Senegalese region of West Africa,
Right.
Mm-hmm.
and they went up there and ruled for 800 years. That is a hell of a movie in itself because they revolutionized, development in Spain and parts of Portugal.
Mm.
800 years. That's no
I would
joke.
love that. You know what I would love to see the Battle of Tundibi. You know, that was a battle between the Moroccans and the Songhai Empire that brought down the
Yeah.
Songhai Empire, and that was a love story. The African, not the Skiya Muhammad, he passed away. His predecessor's daughter had fell in love with or the boat ride on the Niger River had fell in love with one of the Moroccan Portuguese men and everything like that. She conspired with him, because they had brought guns. The first what time guns were used in modern warfare into the Songhai. And they said, well, there's only 500 men. What can they do? And so basically, it was like a Romeo and Juliet situation. The people that wanted to kill them. Then they said, okay, they gave them water and they recovered and recouped and everything, because they crossed the desert.
Yeah.
And by the time they got to Timbuktu, and everything like that. These guys, they were nearly dead, and the Africans nursed them back to life. And everything. But they had an arsenal of weapons, that they used to break. And that situation that introduced guns into West African warfare is what brought down the Songhai Empire. Then the whole entire West African infrastructure collapsed. You know,
Yeah.
and that's why the slave trade happened and everything, because all these kingdoms were disconnected from each other, and Europeans appeared on the coast right around the same time, and that's where the slave trade happened. You know,
It's crazy, man. And you know, on the citizenship thing, is there someone in and I don't know who this person could be. I'm just throwing out ideas. Is there someone that could approach the Nigerian, Ghanaian, Liberian, Sierra Leone government from an African American perspective?
I,
And
I, I would say this: the people who have the power influence, they won't do it.
why not?
Again, it's you have to understand who their handlers are. So the last thing they want is Black Americans having options outside of America.
right?
But it's already happening. There's several Black Americans who live in Ghana right now.
Yeah, yeah, but
There's several
again,
Yeah, we
Black
have
Americans
very
who
little
live in
influence.
Nigeria.
I'm talking about the people with the power, wealth, and influence. Black Americans. Let's think about it. If Oprah Winfrey, Jay Z, all these black
Robert
leaders,
Smith.
whoever went to Ghana and Nigerian, presidents or leaders to speak on dual citizenship, they'll get done. But they're not going to.
Yeah, 'cause they want this all to go away. You know, they want to be Americans,
Yeah.
Black Americans.
Again, they hate America but love America at the same time.
I got you. Yeah.
So there is no, the end game is America. That's it. That's all.
Yeah. I got you. But I think that's the key though. In terms of economics, in terms of I've listened to you guys talk about citizenship. I actually listened to one of Dinah's videos when he was talking to God, I forgot his name. John, is it John in Lagos?
John Cashin, yeah, Cashin.
Yeah, yeah. Listen, that
Yeah,
dude,
that's my brother.
that dude is gangster. He knows stuff about Nigeria I don't even know.
Yeah.
Like he's something else, man. But just listening, and I was like, listen, why not? Why not approach someone in Nigeria and say, hey, but Dennis, you have a citizenship. You're
Right.
Nigerian,
Yeah.
right? Yeah. So, and I know if you got with the right Nigerian person and you went to Lagos or you went to Abuja, they would get you citizenship. They would approach one person and the next and find a way to get you. So I think the connections just need to be made. But the
Right.
question I have is, will America allow you hold a dual?
Yeah, you can have with America. You can have as many citizenships, passports as you want.
Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because I think
It's all
clearly,
it's all on the black man. It's all like I said. I'll accept the fact that if I go to the Chinese, they're gonna say no or whatever. But there's no excuse for an African saying denying me us anything. You know, there's no excuse. When
Yeah.
the power that be is holding back and his hands is black, that's unacceptable.
And
Yeah.
then another thing too, which you have to understand, dude, I hate to say it, bro, but even the Pan African Africa, they're not serious.
Yeah.
So even saying, okay, let's get together, let's go to Nigeria and approach who we need to. 99% of them will, oh man, well, that's a long flight, man. I mean, that's a 12-hour flight, man. I can't do that. Oh man, I can't do that. Oh man, it's just the majority. I mean, what I've discovered on my journey, brother, is that the majority of people aren't serious.
Yeah.
I hear you. So what about because wherever you guys live, you have your own congressperson or your own senator, right?
Oh,
Man, dude,
Yeah.
bro,
Congress.
bro, let me tell you something. So, my fraternity is Kappa Alpha Psi. We
Okay.
have a song, it goes pretty much, the road to Kappa land is long, rough, and rocky. It's like you're on your own. It's the same thing on this journey. It's like you have people who support you, but you're kind of on your own. So, as far as being the pioneers who do this, it's like we're kind of on our own. We're not going to get the backing from the people with the power, wealth, and influence, and the senators and our local politicians.
Until one day when we do have power on the continent, right? And we'll say, well, geez, when I don't know how it's going to happen. I don't know if God's going to move heaven and earth. It's going to part. God's going to part. But when we do have that power on the continent, right, and we have the power to block the U.S. or whoever on the continent because we have power and influence, and we built this network on the continent, this infrastructure, this Black African infrastructure that we want to build. Once that day is happening, it may not happen in our lifetime or not, then they're going to respect us. Why? Because they only respect power. See, they have us here as a cage bee. Are you really scared of a lion in a cage? No.
No.
You know, where you afraid of a lion at when he's in his element? You know, when you can't protect yourself from him. Whatnot. He could sneak up on you. That's how we are in America. We're caged. We're in captivity. You know, our minds. You know, they make us think in our minds that if we go to Africa, we're going to fail. We're going to be humiliated. You know, when anytime you look at history, building in Africa is a natural thing. They did it. You know, they understand the Irish, the Scottish, and all these other people. They the how the British, the Saxons fought against the Vikings and everything like that. We're not doing anything that anybody else hasn't done in history. You know, so bottom line, why they make us seem that we're any different than anybody else? It's natural to want to connect with your motherland and build infrastructure. You
Yeah.
know, we gotta say this is natural. You know, and don't apologize for it. You know,
Look, any Jewish person could go to Israel tomorrow.
right?
And
Any Jewish person,
yeah.
they don't apologize either. And you know what gets me is this? You know what gets me is this about Negroes and some Negroes in America? Well, the state of Israel was taking. I don't care how they took it. They took it for the pounds, but they got a nation. I'm not going to freaking doubt them for doing the right thing. They're like, yo, we felt persecuted for hundreds of years and everything, so we want to build a state on it. They said, well, that's not really that. It doesn't here and there. They got a state. Leave them alone. Why don't you create? You create about you. Why don't you worry about creating something for yourself in Africa instead of worrying about what somebody else has?
That's right.
You
And you know
know,
what, Dinus, you've created something. I mean, here we all are talking about this, and
Right.
you know, you're Omo Niger. You go to Niger all the time. You have connections in Nigeria.
I
I'm sure.
was listen, I was supposed to be there last month. I was supposed to go next month. Can't go. Well, I'll be there in August.
Yeah,
And
and I
one
think
one
I
thing,
think that
let me do something in
uh,
chat room. I'm not speaking negative. I'm just being honest. Like it's just when it's time to put up, like all the internet Pan Africans just can't nowhere to be found. I'm
nope.
just being honest.
facts. I think if more people went on your trip with you to Nigeria, and then start meeting people and networking and doing things, it's only a matter of time before you know
Socialization.
opportunities, yes, opportunities,
Socialization.
a
That's the
lot of
first
different
thing.
things will start opening up. And I think there's something there. I don't have the formula. I can't even try to predict, but I know that clearly with time and just having the right conversation with different people. I mean, look, you started going to Africa. I've seen tons of your videos. You're a Nigerian citizen.
2011.
Yeah, you're a Nigerian citizen now. You
Mhm.
know, you're very well versed about Nigeria and even West Africa and most Africans I've met. So that says a lot. And
Yeah,
if
but
that could be accomplished,
I think the thing is too, like a lot of people don't want to, and not saying that a lot of people don't want to put in the work or the energy. Like, I mean, even in 2011 when I went, like people thought I was crazy. They thought I was nuts going to Africa. Like they thought I was insane. So it's like where I'm at now, and like just talking to people who are on that side and with the power, wealth, and influence, and people on this side, they're like, look, if you haven't even been to Africa, don't even come knock on my door.
yeah,
So that's where they're at now. So then I get all these people who like, that is man, I gotta do this, I gotta do that. I want to get this done, I'll get that done. And it's like if you haven't even been to the continent, like people don't even want to see you.
it's true.
What
And
about
that's
this? What about this? Imagine if you have movies, right? You know, okay, black movies. Whatever. How come the setting is never in Africa? You know, the setting. You know, never. I remember I saw this one movie called back in the '90s called Skeleton Coast. You guys ever seen that?
no.
That was filmed in Namibia, you know, and it had Kim Fields in it. When that was a pretty good movie. The reason why I liked it, I was like, wow, this was shot in Africa, you know. That was back in like the early '90s, you know. It's called Skeleton Coast, right? And I was like, wow, it's a good movie, you know. It was a low budget movie and everything. But I was saying to myself, how come the scenery and the background in black movies and everything like that? I mean, you may have people go to the Caribbean, You may have them go to London and everything like that. You know, they would show the screenshot of plane landing, and they're in London. Next thing you know, they're in a nightclub and everything like that. Next, they're meeting up for business and everything. What if we made that natural as part of the culture? You know, that yeah, you know, the senior, yeah, I met with some Nigerian investors over here. I was over here doing business. Matter of factly, you know, that would go a long way to saying, okay, well, geez, let me include Africa into the equation. You know, right now the movie industry and everything like that. You know, Black Panther was just could be just a once in a lifetime thing. You know, but that was like so revolutionary. They're like, you know, they had to like that. But you know, I thought there was gonna be a follow up. Okay, let's do some movie. You know, it could be anything. It could be a love story. It could be a gangster movie. You know, it could be anything. You know, it could be a historical movie. You know that
And,
you know don't necessarily deal with slavery. You know,
and
so
then outside of that, it's like even like if I get African Americans interested, like Ghana is Africa. Like Ghana is the only
right,
country.
right. Ghana's the only country in Africa.
Ghana is the only country in Africa. So I'm like, look, there are other opportunities here and there. Like Ghana is the only country in Africa. So you got the ones who aren't serious, and then the ones who are, I guess, serious. If it's not Ghana, like Ghana is Africa. Like nothing exists outside of Ghana in Africa.
Yeah, I've heard that too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's just like I'm like, dude, listen, let's break it down from a business standpoint. Nigeria, there's over 200 million people in Nigeria. Nigeria has the largest black diaspora on the planet. I don't care what you say about Nigeria in regards to now they're trying to say Nigeria is the poverty capital of the world. Nigerians have money. Like Nigerians are balling. So
Can,
even
can you can you
Nigeria,
ima- can you imagine what would happen if African Americans started
Echo Atlantic, Echo Atlantic.
doing
Look at
business with Nigeria as a nation on a mass scale? Can you
yeah,
imagine what would happen?
this out. You know what you need,
It
right?
would
Let
be
me give you
scary. I mean, the amount of millionaires that will be made will be ridiculous.
things out. You
It,
know, we have Robert Smith, right? He's investing. He says he's going to invest in Africa and
yeah.
stuff like that. I mean, if I was a billionaire, I was like this. Wow, you got a whole continent out there, 200 million people in Nigeria alone, whatever like that. Just media alone, a media software
Yes.
and
Yes.
stuff like that. You know something. We're at a time where everything's going to be done through software. That means if you want to trade or sell and everything, you got to be linked with this platform and everything. You have to have this code. We're coding. You have to be encoded and everything. So many different levels of security and everything. Africa is, so you want to do business in Africa, you ain't going to show up here and dump your stuff and that's it. You got to be processed. You got to do this, that, the other thing. For that, that opens up opportunity for
Yes.
mid-level traders and logistics and stuff like that. So if we played our cards right and say, look, you want access to this market, we got control. But another thing and problem is in Nigeria, they said the customs is a joke.
It
You
is.
know,
It is.
your customs that can't happen. You got with a nation state, your customs and everything like that. You want to. It wasn't until recently. I remember the oil companies only went in Port Harcourt in the late 1970s. Before they were doing offshore drilling and just take the oil and tell Nigeria this is what we
And
got.
yeah. Well, you know,
You
Kyle,
know.
here's the crazy part, right? Let me even break it down even deeper for you. The major port that works in Nigeria is in Lagos, right?
Mm-hmm.
Port Harcourt has a port, but Port Harcourt's port isn't functioning properly. Warri, which is in Delta State, also has a port. There's another port in a place called Burutu. And then Bayelsa has several areas for deep sea ports. These are
Okay.
all areas within 10 to 20 miles away from each other. If Nigeria built ports in these areas, they would create instant millionaires in US
Of
dollars
course.
in
Overnight.
Nigeria overnight. And that is the frustration. But guess what? Let me even break it down even further. There are people in Nigeria saying, well, if we want to build ports, we got to go to the Chinese and ask them
We
to
gotta go to
build ports.
Dubai. Every
We
time I
got to
say
go
the
to
name,
Dubai.
the old
But guess
Dubai.
what? There are
Yeah.
African Americans out there that if they wanted to, could talk to a governor and say, hey, you know what? I'll build a damn port for you. I'll get the financing from the United States and build a port for you. And it could be done. It could be
Right.
done. And think about this. If the person was smart enough, that's here or there, but smart enough, they could say, you know what, I'll use this money to empower a lot of African Americans in the United States and a lot of Nigerians and create a lot of wealth for a lot of different people.
No, we don't need the Chinese. The bottom everything that can be produced in
Nah.
America can be produced in America. Let me give another example, right? We have abandoned steel, and I talked about this for years. We have abandoned steel mills right now. Right now, Nigeria doesn't have the steel capacity just yet because you got to have heavy industry on top of it to the steel.
Yeah,
Well,
we used to have
Yeah,
Ajaokuta
we have
steel
that,
mill.
but until then, imagine these steel mills that are sitting lying dormant in Gary, right? In places like Newark, New Jersey. So like,
just
what
tell
if
me,
we have a combined steel company, Appalachian Steel Corporation, right, to rehab some of those plants? When you'll create jobs here, and you'll have a source for your steel instead of importing steel. Right now, China is supplying Africa with steel. Steel takes away all your money.
Yeah,
no matter
yeah.
what you sell, if you can't produce steel in a quantity, the bottom line, how do you stop the outflow of capital? One is stop by building a heavy industrial base on the continent. But until then, you could go to other places like Chinese do. They buy companies all over the world. If they
Yeah.
can't do it, they'll go to France. Like, what do you think would happen? How do you think the Wuhan thing? I think they bought textile mills in northern Italy. Why? Because Italians are old. They don't. Like, so they went over there with the Wuhan virus in northern Italy, and that's how the virus spread to Italy.
Yeah,
They
yeah.
go around the world buying up factories, abandoned factories, rehabbing them, and basically feed their global infrastructure. We have the ability right here. We sit on mayors. We have black mayors in these cities and city council. You got plants sitting there not doing anything and everything. We have abandoned construction sites here in America and everything. Nigeria and Africa could use that for the time being, right, to rehab those things for their own industrial capacity, integrate that into the modern African industrial capacity.
Yeah. No, no, Carlo, you're right. And every time I go to Nigeria, I meet Americans, but 90% of the time, they're white Americans.
you know what? A
Yeah.
lot. It's funny you said that because they're working in the oil fields for
Yeah,
these
they're
oil
white
Yeah,
companies.
American.
Port Harcourt. Port
I
Harcourt.
meet them,
Yeah.
oil fields, a lot of different things, and they're there for a reason. I know they're there for a reason. And I'm looking saying, damn, when I was in America, you guys made it hard for me to get a job. Now I'm in Nigeria. You guys are over here taking all the jobs, and the people that look like me in America can't come over here.
Right, right. I saw that back in the '90s, right? I saw these white Americans with their families and everything. Same people call you a nigga, living in Nigeria with
Yeah,
their daughters and whatnot, and they're saying they're living the white American life. Probably saying, look, niggas don't know what's going on. While you in America talking about I ain't no African, this white guy was living the life. He worked for
living
oil companies,
life. Is
living the
living in
damn life and
is
whatnot.
living
I'm
in
saying,
Ikoyi
nothing wrong with that.
suburbs
I'm in
in
America,
Lagos, most
you know.
expensive. I'm talking about you talking about apartments that are super expensive real estate. They're living there, gated
Yeah,
walls, everything. Living nice. Living
I've seen
nice.
that. I've seen some of the apartments and buildings they built in Nigeria. Beautiful,
Yeah, living
beautiful.
nice.
Better architecture than I see in America. Well, like some of these
Yeah.
new developments. I'm like, wow.
If there's a way, I swear that I don't even have a solution to. But if there was a way to bridge that gap efficiently, if I was the president of Nigeria, I would have a huge conference in the United States addressing African
Yes,
American.
also, yeah, you can't put all the blame on that. First of all, we have to say like this. This is what Black America has to say. Look, this is what we want, right? If once Black America said this is what we want, then people who call themselves so-called leaders better start stepping up or shut the hell up. Don't tell us who to vote for. Don't tell it. If you ignore that we put this out there, that we want to build this, we want to connect our schools and investments and everything with Nigeria, Ghana, Angola, and all these other countries, everything. We want to build a Pan-African business. That's the future, right? Because the bottom line is if you want to create millionaires and billionaires and whatnot, we have to do it with Africa. We cannot be confined to the United States. The natural place for us to be global, start our global quest is Africa, our ancestral homeland. Now, if you're not getting on board with that, if every time I look up and you sitting there giving me lip service and mumbo jumbo and nonsense about, oh, yeah, Donald Trump, blah, 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 that's the whole thing. The only thing it's about impeach 45, impeach 45. We got a bunch of idiots freaking leading us,
Yeah.
Impeach 45. What the hell has that got to do with what needs to be done?
And I wonder, you know what, Kala, I wonder how all these corporations in the United States that do get access to opportunities in Nigeria, how do they find out about these opportunities, right?
Well,
Because
they know the opportunities before they even
do they
start.
yeah, do they find out from the embassy or do they find out from because they happen to get this firsthand information, and sometimes the US government actually gives them grants to go into
Yep.
these West
Yep.
African countries.
The U.S. government studies, CIA always have what they call strategic investments and stuff like that. It's all political. They say this country's going to need this country's going to need that, right? And so they basically key into their key people, right? White Americans mostly, and say you go here. Then what they do is this, right? They make sure the media make sure that the Black Americans don't know anything about it.
Right.
You know, well, if the United States was real smart, what they could do was let's take this Pan African stuff a little seriously. You know, let's say we got people that want to do business in Africa. Let's use them and find a partnership on equal bound. We're not so therefore Black people that want to move to Africa and everything they can invest in Africa. At the same time, we get what we want like this. They don't
Yeah,
want to do it like that.
yeah,
They don't want to play fair like that.
yeah.
Their
Instead
whole
of losing
idea
out
is
to the
crush it.
Chinese, you might as well just
Their whole idea is to crush Black people in America like a bug, like a bug on a rug. You know what I'm saying? We're just this annoying bug that keeps popping up and whatnot that they're trying to swat down. You know, that's what it is. That's what we're up against. They don't want to do a fair and square deal with Black America. You know, that's what it is. So we have to fight this thing and force them. You know, force them. Say, look, if you're gonna lose everything, that's how you use China as leverage. You know, use China as
yeah,
leverage.
yeah.
I love China. So look, if you don't, we're gonna go to Russia. You know, hey, Russia, study Liberian politics, right? Liberia mastered the science of putting foreign powers against each other. They had Germany going against England, right? You know, they had France going against the United States, right? And at the same time, they're reaping all the benefits, you know what I'm saying, and concessions and stuff like that they got done in Liberia by playing people against each other, but not giving up anything, giving up very little. We have to
Kala,
know how to play that game
yeah, I'll give
of
you an
global
example,
politics.
Kala. Like you guys are familiar with what Akon has done, right, in
Right.
Senegal. Yeah,
Right. With the city, yeah.
that opportunity also exists for African American. The solar technology is abundant in the United States, and there's several places in West Africa. I could speak about Nigeria. I've been to Monrovia, and when you mentioned Liberia, that's what it came to mind. They don't have power, right? They're basically almost off the grid. They have zero power. You know,
Go ahead. Go ahead. It depends.
yeah,
Depends. I was only in Monrovia, but when I was in Monrovia, I would say it's not as bad as Nigeria.
in some parts, yes, you're right. In some parts, but a lot of 24-hour generators, especially after the war. You have these serious basic issues, right? Water, drinking water, right? So those opportunities exist. That technology is like the most fundamental level in the United States. So the solar piece, for instance, like, hey, right? You may not have the money, but there are companies, and of course, hopefully the companies will be Black owned, but
Right.
usually that becomes, but the opportunities are there. You could go create a grid, partner with the right local partner, create a grid in a part of Nigeria, Liberia. You know, if I had the money, I'll be doing it right now, right? But
Right.
those things are there, and you can easily create power, renewable source of power for certain people in certain parts of Africa, and you would actually make money because they would pay for power.
Yeah.
Right. So internet is another one. There are those sort of things that the African infrastructure, the African Americans that have the revenue, that have the money.
That's where
Yeah.
the money's at.
So there are opportunities like that, and I think looking at all the work Dynas has put in, he has a lot of equity and a lot of knowledge. He could sit he could sit in a room filled with executives, and he has a corporate America background. He could sit in a room filled with executives and school them on how to do business in Nigeria.
Right.
Facts. And they'll be stupid not to listen.
A consulting business. I would love Dynas, but Dynas is only one person.
I'm just using him as an example, of course.
I'm saying is with Dynasty, people step up with him and say, "Look, we're going to do this. Get serious and whatnot. Form that consulting company. And form that consulting business across the Atlantic. And stuff like that. And so therefore, in each country. In fact, I know a couple of African consultants. My brother Sam, he's Liberian in Ghana. He has a company called the Gulf of Guinea Consultants. He got a lot of stuff done. Different companies come to him for consulting and connections in Ghana and Liberia and stuff like that. So we need more people like that, like that. We need the business people in Black America to see the value in Africa and everything like that and start building. The one thing you won't have in Africa is the race.
Yeah,
which is always here. You could be who you want to be. That's what I dream about, living in the country.
And believe it or not, if you connect with the right, I'll use Nigeria as an example because that's my country. But if you connect with the right Nigerian people, they would actually be happier to do business with an African American than,
I know.
you know,
I know it's true.
yeah, you know what I mean?
True.
Because they've, especially if they've traveled, like I've experienced racism. Before I left Nigeria, I didn't think racism was a thing, you know, but I left, I experienced it, I saw it firsthand. I learned about African American history, which opened my eyes even more to this world. Because you have to understand, a lot of people in Nigeria, in Africa specifically, they see their immediate problem, right? If they see a white person, it's a rarity, you know. So they don't really know. You'd be shocked, but they don't really fully understand unless they've traveled and spent time abroad. They really don't understand,
Yeah.
you know. So you have that situation. So a lot of times when they, and I always tell people in Nigeria when I go, I say, first thing you have to realize, Europeans are not really your friends. Some of them are, don't get me wrong, but then as a whole, given the history, if you take it from that standpoint, you're gonna be all right. But then most of the time you don't see a white person. So if they do, they think, oh, okay, what I see on TV, you know, it is what it is, and then usually they find out the hard way.
Yeah. They think racism is just something that we complain about here and there, and it's all the whole world is a loving place and everything. And the thing is, one brother used to come on Diane's show, always says African Americans know the system, how to deal with them. And one thing I noticed, have you guys ever saw the that one Facebook group, that Facebook page called Africland, the one they took down?
No.
They took that thing down. White South Africans got that taken down. Why? Because they said the African American influence in Africa was dangerous, and dangerous. There's one white girl said, "Oh, this is a poor place. Africans are so nice and whatnot. I love the wild animals and the people so friendly. And I gotta go out there and they're being changed by these African Americans, who don't belong in Africa on what they see online." I'm like, a white person from Europe is saying that black people, African American, don't belong in Africa. That's what they'll say. You don't belong in Africa, and you're ruining their. Remember that girl? What's that girl that? You're ruining my future. The Greta, whatever her name is, the climate change girl.
Yeah.
You're ruining my future and whatnot. Notice how all those climate change people are quiet since the COVID-19. They're getting what they want: population reduction. But she's like, "You're ruining my Africa's such a beautiful place and everything, and you got African Americans, ruining it and whatnot." I'm saying, look, man, I've been through a lot as a black man in America, right? The one thing we always thought about one time was when we go back to the motherland, we have that. Now you're gonna tell me you got whites that got so comfortable in Africa, right? That I'm making them uncomfortable. Not even being in Africa, but just being able to connect on social media with Africans. That's a threat. I don't believe what I'm hearing, man. I mean, it's better lines. I'm just tired of getting our ass kicked. It's time for us to get together and just do this thing. Hey, Dennis, I gotta get ready to go, brother.
Yeah. Let's go ahead and close out. Everyone, thank you so much for joining. Really appreciate it. Hope you guys enjoyed the show. Make sure you go to dynastmir.com. Brother, I'm gonna bring you back on. We gotta do a show. In fact, we gotta do a show on Nigeria tomorrow.
Are you watching that? Make sure you send me a notification. I hope I get a notification. I want to hear that.
What time?
Are you free tomorrow?
What time?
You tell me the time. I mean, I'm on quarantine, so I'll be at the house. You tell me what time.
9 o'clock
at night.
Yeah,
can we do like 7?
Okay, we'll do 7.
Okay, 7 o'clock tomorrow. All right, everybody, we'll be back on tomorrow. Chopping up about Nigeria. Until next time, family.
Kala,
peace, Kai. Take care, brothers.
All right, peace.